without Tyrese Halliburton. You won a little ugly for the NBA modern day on Wednesday night. And can you go 2-4? 6-game road trip. I don't care how it looks. Can you go 2-4 and reevaluate Tyrese Halliburton after that?
I just found out here at 7:06, and I did not know this. Minnesota has won 7 straight games.
The Golden Gophers.
Did you know that the Golden Gophers have won 7 straight games?
I heard that coming in on the Sports Center. I did not know that.
The morning check down.
How is the competition look?
The competition, they beat Maryland.
Did they beat Stonehill?
They've went on the road. They beat Michigan. Now, Michigan's a mess, and who knows who the coach was, but they beat Nebraska early December. I mean, the gods of all college basketball.
Now,
Nebraska beating everybody around here.
Was that at the barn or was that at Pinnacle Bank?
It was at the barn. They beat Florida Gulf Coast, your guys. They beat IUPUI, Ball State, Maine, Michigan, and Maryland. 7 straight. So
7 straight is notable.
I was going to laugh at Minnesota, but I'm not sure I'm laughing at Minnesota any longer.
Indiana is favored tonight
by 4.5.
The Pacers, kind of a big underdog. I was a little surprised to see that, but again, I think it's life without Tyrese Halliburton against more competent opponents. They are a 6-point underdog. We'll look ahead to Wild Card Weekend. Again, 2 games tomorrow, 3 on Sunday. And then we've got the Manning cast coming up on Monday night. Corbin is in the building. Corbin, how's the stream looking, brother?
Oh, boy, here we go. He's going to be all flustered right now. Let's see what's going on. Corbin, what's going on with you right now?
Corbin.
Oh, you know.
You said okay. Now you said did you have car issues or did you just simply oversleep? Because it's okay if you overslept.
No, I had car issues.
Oh boy,
battery was dead this morning.
Oh God,
had to go in, wake Dad up, help him get me jumper cables, jump the car.
That is hell on a Friday morning. I'm struggling right now with the back right tires leaking too much. I've already filled up my tire with air 5 times this winter.
Oh, have you already? Well, you probably have an issue then. You should get that looked at.
Thank you. Thank you for stating the obvious.
Well, the problem is you're not going to get one tire. They're going to say, you know what? You really don't want one when you have the other 3 that aren't the same.
I feel like I can survive it. It's just in
it's
the
cold
weather.
Does your car sit outside or inside?
It sits inside in a garage that might as well sit outside.
It might as well. That's how mine is. It might as well be outside. So who's this gentleman next to us? No one
we've
can
got
see him.
Quinn here,
is
the
this
pride
Quinn?
of Cathedral High School.
Oh,
Quinn on his J-term. Is that correct, Quinn? J-term.
What the hell's J-term here? Help me.
Quinn, correct me if I'm wrong here. It's a little like it's a glorified shadowing of jobs.
Oh, okay. Here, talk into the mic here. Here, get into my mic. Here we go.
So at Cathedral, you get 2 weeks to pick an interest. So next week, I'm doing something about like Lord of the Rings and theology because it's Cathedral.
Oh wow,
and I'm
that's a
nerd.
stark contrast to what we're doing here. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about Chris Ballard dropping the F-bomb, and you're going to Lord of the Rings and theology.
I
next
do appreciate
week.
Quinn dropping Lord of the Rings, and I'm a nerd. My hand is raised on that.
Help me
as well.
here. Did you go to? I can't remember. You didn't go to Cathedral.
No,
did
I
you?
did. Yeah,
oh,
I
you
did. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Bowen,
my
I mean, he's
kids
a big
go
deal.
to,
That's why you're here, right? Because
go to
Bowen's a big
daycare.
deal. Okay. All right. I see what's going on.
So welcome to Quinn. Corbin, thank you
it's
as
a busy
always.
studio today.
For filling in for Mark Dykton. The stream should be up and working now. So again, apologies on a little bit of a slow start here on this Friday morning. So again, Pacers tonight, that is 7:30, right? It's a little bit of a different start time, I think, than our normal 7. So 7:30 tonight, Jalen Smith, Aaron Nesmith, both questionable for this evening in Atlanta. And then IU, Minnesota, that's a little earlier. That'll be 6:30 tonight from Bloomington. Purdue will host Penn State tomorrow. Butler has got Seton Hall tomorrow. I did notice Butler's win over Marquette we talked about yesterday, Andy. They climbed 15 spots in the net ranking with that victory. And for me, that's a reminder to our fans of Indiana in that a win like that on the road, top 15 team, that's what it can do. And it now has vaulted Butler like into the late 40s if you look at the net rankings. And typically, and I know we're still 2 months away, but right now with teams like Butler and Indiana squarely on, I mean, hell, Indiana isn't even on the bubble. Indiana's got to do more to get to the bubble. But teams that could be in that mix, wins like that are necessary because to make the tournament, typically the at-large teams, they hover right around 40s, maybe mid-ish 40s if you want to get a little technical, to making the tournament. So that was huge for Butler and going from 63 to 48 on Wednesday night. Again, at some point, Indiana's going to have to get probably multiple, honestly, of those sorts of wins. And if you look at the schedule the rest of the way, there's not many of them. You got 2 against Purdue, 1 Tuesday night, You're going to play Wisconsin.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's coming up right now.
You've got that 3 ranked game stretch,
Yeah,
don't you?
It's coming up right now. You have Purdue, at Wisconsin, at Illinois.
So starting Tuesday.
It's coming up right now. Yeah,
so
Tuesday.
Read that off again. Tonight, Minnesota. This is as close to a home free space game as you're probably going to get the rest of the way. And I know Minnesota, like you said, they've won 7 in a row, but they haven't really been challenged. Okay, Purdue Tuesday, and then continue after that.
Yeah, you go Purdue Tuesday, and then on the 19th at Wisconsin, and then on the 27th you get some days off at Illinois. So Illinois is still number 10 in the country, top 15 team or so there in Wisconsin, and we know Purdue's number 1. So if you're Indiana, and I mean you get if you, I say can you get the Purdue game? I just don't find that feasible. Weird things happen in that game. Last year Indiana wins both meetings, obviously, but after that, it's a bunch of fringe teams. You get Northwestern again, Nebraska again, Iowa, Penn State is on there. So in the next 3 weeks here, you got to get one.
If you lose these 3 ranked games coming up in the next whatever that is, 10 days, 14 days, just start paying attention to Kurt Signetti in spring football.
Is there something else they can pay attention to other than spring football?
Men's soccer? I don't know. Are we focused there? How's Lily King and the swimming and diving program?
The women's team is playing well.
Terry Morin's bunch doing tremendous. They got Iowa, right?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Coming up tomorrow.
Good luck with that one.
Probably focus there.
Because put your focus right there.
You don't have the great resume opportunities the rest of the way after this stretch. You do in the next 10 to 14 days. But if you get through that and you haven't gotten one, you're going to be in scramble mode the rest of the way. Obviously, a lot of our focus here coming up will be on Chris Ballard's comments from yesterday. As Andy said, he definitely stood behind Gus Bradley. He really took full blame, I would say.
He did.
For the defensive issues.
Well, he had to if he was going to keep Gus Bradley. Otherwise, it's Bradley's fault.
It's a reminder of, Jim Irsay kind of signing off on a bit of the youth movement in some areas that they've opted. I still don't think, if you really want to break down the defensive personnel, I don't think it's as big of this, youth movement, guys you've picked up off the street sort of mindset that maybe some people have. Andy, if you really looked at every level of the defense, it is filled with cap space. It's filled with draft picks, guys you've identified, guys you've re-signed, guys you've taken in rounds 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's not this just, hey, we found this dude from the CFL and he's been a nice story and now he's going to plug and play and be a starter. That's not really it defensively. So, and to me, 28th in points allowed when you played the quarterbacks that you did, that is still pretty damning last year for that unit. So certainly we'll play some audio on that. Michael Pittman continues to be someone that Chris Ballard really adores, I think it's safe to say there. And on the needs list, a couple of needs to bring up as well. Anthony Richardson also spoke to the media yesterday, so we'll share some thoughts on that. Good Friday morning to you. If you have to, if you can, I should say, don't go outside. Just stay inside. It's ugly. It's raining. It's cold. It's miserable. Good luck if you are out on the move here on this Friday morning. I'm Kevin Bone. He's Andy Sweeney. Corbin and Quinn in with us here on this Friday. Thanks for spending it with us. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Ride with Jay.
And remember, Greg Rakestraw going to be joining us coming up at 8 o'clock. Joel A. Erickson from the Star will join us. We'll talk some Colts with him as they wrapped up their season. Chris Ballard, Anthony Richardson meeting with the media yesterday. And let's begin there. Some newsworthy items, no doubt. Chris Ballard was asked about Michael Pittman getting a contract done there. Here's what Ballard had to say.
Care deeply about him, and him and I we have a really good relationship. It's an honest one, almost too honest, I think, sometimes. But that's what I love about him. I mean, guy's competitive, he's tough, he cares, he wants to win. I mean, look, we're going to work to get him back. We'll work through that. We got I know we're going to have a few free agents you're all going to want to talk about, and I'm probably going to give you the same answer. Would like to have them all back, but it didn't work that way. It's just the nature of what we do. But Pitt's a good football player for us, and hopefully he still remains a Colt.
I'll continue to reiterate what I've said. I think Michael Pittman will be back, Andy, in 2024. Not sure exactly how it'll look, if that will be the franchise tag or not. The big question is north of $70 million. That is a huge number. And I thought Chris Ballard yesterday could have gone down the path of, hey, a huge chunk of that's going to go to our in-house guys. When you think about Pittman, you think about Julian Blackmon, you think about Grover Stewart, you think about Kenny Moore, even, second-tier guys, if you want to label them as that, Gardner Minshew, Tyquan Lewis, Rigoberto Sanchez, some of those guys. He didn't go there, though. I still think a chunk of it will go to in-house guys, but I hope this is not my mind wanting to hear this, but it seemed like you didn't get the same old, here I'm waving the flag for free agency is a scam and a farce, and it's B money for C players or A money for B players, however you want to describe it. I didn't get that as much as I have out of Ballard in the season-ending pressers. That's the one I want to throw at Joel Erickson if he walked away with that same vibe coming up at 9 o'clock, but that's something we can get into a little bit more here in a bit.
I kind of walked away that he said great things about Grover Stewart.
Yeah,
Grover Stewart was one of the guys, probably free agent-wise, that he talked about the most glowingly.
He said
honestly.
Great things about all, I think, of the in-house guys. I mean, Kenny Moore, Julian Blackmon, but again, how does all of that play out? Are all four of them back? Is there one that's more replaceable than the others? I think those are some, very fair conversations to have over the next couple of months. All right, tonight it is a long road trip beginning for the Indiana Pacers. It'll be the Atlanta Hawks that they will take on tonight. A 6-point underdog. And now I think life with Tyrese Halliburton really begins. Away from home against better competition. Aaron Nesmith and Jalen Smith also questionable for tonight. Pacers have the best record since Christmas. Did not realize. Saw Pat Boylan have that stat yesterday. 8-1 since Christmas for this team. I think the big question for me exiting Wednesday, Andy, you won ugly. A big reason I think why you had to win ugly, Andrew Nembhard, Buddy Hield, 1 of 13 from the field. You can't survive that against better competition moving forward.
Yeah, especially Buddy Hield. Now, I looked it up. Do you know what the Pacers have scored the last 2 times this season when they face the Atlanta Hawks?
Both, correct me if I'm wrong, but both were over 150, right?
Yes, they were. The latest game the other night was, 150-116. In the game near the beginning of the season, 157-152, if you remember. So if
safe bet to say they won't get to 150 tonight.
So even if you had 290 now at 299 and a half, you covered. 157-152 was what they had earlier this season. So I wonder what the over-under needs to be, because Atlanta's going to score, you would imagine. I mean, they're a better defensive unit. It does worry me, Jalen Smith potentially being out.
Yeah, back injury, he was out the other night.
Yeah.
Again, coming up after this, it will be that road trip. Denver, Utah, that's a back-to-back Sunday, Monday, and then Sacramento, Portland, and Phoenix. Denver, Sunday afternoon. That's a 3:30 tip, by the way. Bruce Brown getting his ring in Denver. So
he does. That's nice of him.
Nice for Bruce Brown getting his championship ring coming up Sunday afternoon.
Did they ever say how many diamonds are on the ring? Every time there's a ring, they say that it has the most diamonds that they've ever had at diamonds. They always do this.
Sure, yeah.
Super Bowl winners,
I paid too much
NBA title winners. College basketball, IU and Purdue both in action coming up this weekend. Hoosiers tonight, 6:30 tip-off. Our coverage over on IBC at 5:30. Purdue Fort Wayne in action tonight as well, 7 o'clock at Robert Morris. Purdue hosting Penn State. That one tomorrow at 2:15.
Lastly, from an NFL wildcard standpoint, again, 2 games tomorrow, Texans, Browns, Chiefs, Dolphins, and then on Sunday, Steelers, Bills, Cowboys, Packers, the nightcap, probably the juiciest of all the wild card games. Matthew Stafford back to Detroit to take on the Lions, and then Eagles, Bucks on Monday night. Andy Sweeney, if I took the Bills off the board, wild card weekend team that can make a run.
Wild card weekend team that could make a run.
Cannot go with the Bills.
I can't go with the Bills. Oh, I'm fine with that. No, I'm scared to death. I don't mind saying it because later on, we'll go through these games, who we feel most confident about and everything else. I am now terrified, and you started this, and it's one of the first predictions we made as a show, and I looked at Kevin Bowen, and I've never looked at him the same. He picked the Dallas Cowboys, the evil empire, I know it is, of the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm terrified of the Cowboys. So if you ask me a team that could make a run, I'm terrified.
If they weren't the Cowboys, if they were the Vikings, would you still have the same feeling?
Well, I mean, the Cowboys are losers. They haven't done anything. So usually I would say, they'll choke it away somewhere, but I don't think the Eagles...
God, 3 straight, 12-win seasons. I'm scared what you think of the rest of the NFL if you're calling the Cowboys losers.
Losers once they get to the postseason. It's all about the postseason. I mean, Mike McCarthy, if he lost this game, could get fired. So Jerry Jones kind of feels like I do. Oh.
How juicy would that be?
Oh, that would be juicy. Parcells has been there.
Corbin,
right?
You got a wild card team
Come
you
on,
like,
Corbin.
not named Buffalo?
Well, I'm in on Miami right now.
Ooh.
Just because.
Are you worried about the weather Saturday night? Sounds like it's going to be freezing.
I
should be.
I think so. Minus 35 is the wind chill right now.
Is Jimmy
out there
Cook
in
going to
KC.
that game? He's not going, is he?
Put him in a hazmat suit if he is.
That's why he's just going to wear an adult diaper. He's just going to sit in the crowd.
In all seriousness, Corbin, I am very curious to see how Miami looks Saturday night because it's all of a sudden changed a little bit for Kansas City. Like, it used to be Kansas City needs the great weather. Now Kansas City almost seems like they could win a little bit of a slugfest.
Oh, no, this is great for Kansas City.
I see
It'd be
that
30
weather
below.
Saturday night. I think Isaiah Pacheco's going to run it 30 times in that game.
I see Miami packing it away. I think Corbin's the only one who is going Miami. He might be the only person in my life that I know that's like, you know what, I'm going to ride this Miami Dolphin thing out a little bit longer.
4.5 point favorite there, the Chiefs over the Dolphins.
One quick note, the Eagles are very lucky. If they played on Saturday, A.J. Brown probably doesn't play or is severely limited. He hasn't done anything at practice, and Jalen Hurts has thrown one pass since he was taken out of the Giants game on Sunday. One pass, and that was just like a screen pass, kind of fooling around. He hasn't thrown with that finger injury.
That is a middle finger on the throwing hand, correct?
Throwing hand. So, they go into a Friday today where yesterday those guys didn't do anything. Devontae Smith is going to play, but he hasn't done a lot either. Their big wigs over there are all injured. And they get Saturday, Sunday, and Monday during the day to kind of heal up. The scheduling people gave the Eagles a break, quite frankly.
And
they
again,
did.
Saturday will be tomorrow. That is Texans and Browns. I'm looking forward to that one. C.J. Stroud against Joe Flacco. I say that in all seriousness. I'm looking forward to that matchup. That'll get things started on Wild Card Weekend. All right, on the other side, Chris Ballard, a ton of comments to break down from him. Coming from yesterday's 51-minute presser. We'll share some of those thoughts on the other side. It's a wake-up call here on a Friday.
Saturday featuring Indy 11. If this is your football, this is your show. Saturday at 9 on The Fan.
Not everyone can be a champion in high school sports, but everyone can be a champion of high school sports.
That's right. Fans and parents can.
All right, so everyone stay safe. It's going to be quite the weekend. I know it's already, spitting rain and or snow, so it's going to be like that. Then it's going to get cold, coming up for a few days. So this is a weekend to be inside, watch some college basketball, and tune in to some NFL. We'll have you all day here on the Fan. So wake up call, KB and Andy live from the DriveHubler.com studios. All right, so Chris Ballard yesterday, a 50-minute press conference, 51 minutes. I finally saw the setup. I don't know who it was, took a picture of the media throng, if you will. You guys have your own each little cubicle like you're taking a test. Like you can't cheat off the guy next to you.
Yeah, there are some dividers, aren't there?
There's a divider like you're taking the SAT or something like that. So, and for the most part, and we're going to play some sound here, for the most part, Gus Bradley coming back. Listen, whether it's the decision is made on the Steichen level or the level with Chris Ballard, fans are going to be watching how the defense plays, how many points the defense allows. Free agents, Michael Pittman a conversation, Jonathan Taylor a conversation, and obviously the conversation around Anthony Richardson. So let's play some sound here. We'll play Ballard and Anthony Richardson, and let's be honest here, KB. The Anthony Richardson staying healthy, Anthony Richardson playing style, how many games can he play, the backup quarterback? That is going to be a huge conversation this offseason. I might be already tired of it, but that's a conversation for many months around here. So let's do that. Let's start, Corbin, here with Chris Ballard on Anthony Richardson's style. Go ahead.
It's a tough balance because you don't want to take away. It was a little like this with Andrew, where, I'd tell Andrew, instinctively when you get in a game, you react to whatever your instincts take you to. So to tell him, hey, look, you got to get down or you got to get out of bounds. Or Andrew would always tell me, Chris, my instincts and my competitive nature just takes over. And I think the same thing happens with, Anthony. I don't think Anthony's reckless by any stretch. I didn't think Andrew was either. I didn't think they're competitive. But learning when to get out of bounds, when to get down versus when to go for it. Those are going to be things he's just going to have to learn.
All right, so that's Chris Ballard. Now, before he took the podium, Anthony Richardson had a conversation with the media. He was obviously asked about his playing style. Here's what AR had to say.
No, I don't think so. It's just a matter of me just being out there and just learning when to get down, when not to get down. Some of the injuries were unfortunate, like my ankle getting stepped up on, hitting my knee on the turf really hard, just stuff like that, stuff that I can't control. But the ones that I can't control, I got to prevent those, like me slowing up near the end zone, getting the concussion, that was completely on me. And then, getting tackled, I couldn't really prevent that. I was trying to brace myself for it, and just unfortunately my shoulder just, did what it did. But I don't think I have to change the way I play, just being a little smarter when the time does come.
I was nodding my head a lot at Anthony Richardson's related comments yesterday about this topic, about his playing style and about moving forward and how, to protect himself from an injury standpoint. He had a line yesterday, Andy, there's a time and a place to be physical. And I could not agree more on that statement there. He used kind of a down and distance example. 1st and 10 is not the time to put your body on the line. I go back to the Will Levis being helicoptered in the Colts game on the first third down of the game. I'm like, God bless Will Levis, but no, that's not smart. That does not create longevity. It creates teammates saying thank you for a brief second, but then when you're hurt and Will Levis gets hurt later in the year,
you have to put Malik Willis in the game.
It doesn't matter. So
right.
This is where I kind of stand on the Richardson and the playing style debate. I don't think he's reckless. I think Josh Allen's reckless, and Josh Allen's just been gifted with a body that can withstand all of it. It's insane how Josh Allen he's never missed a game, right, in his NFL career.
Yeah, and I would say he's absolutely reckless.
Yes,
there's
he's
no doubt about it.
1,000% reckless with his playing style. When Richardson brings up the Houston play, the concussion, and the Tennessee play, which ended his season, they are two very different plays. As he points out there, the Houston play, he kind of lets up just before going in the end zone. He takes the hit from the safety and suffers the concussion on that play. The Tennessee play, to me, what else could he do? That is like a run to the right. He is, I don't even know if he was at the hash mark, probably maybe just past the hash mark, if anything. It's not like he was near the sideline by that point to where he could have run out of bounds, or it's not like he could have slid there. It's simply Harold Landry, who is about the same size as Anthony Richardson, making a tackle. So that play in itself, I don't fault Richardson. That's not like some, moment where he's trying to get extra yards. He's fighting for something more. That's just him getting tackled in the course of the field. So when I kind of get around this whole debate, again, it comes back to limit, not eliminate. And to me, so much of that needs to fall on Shane Steichen. And I think Shane Steichen has got to be very selective in choosing when he utilizes Anthony Richardson. There are times and there are places to be physical. That's what Richardson says. I'd argue there's times and places to run him. You do not. The threat is always going to be there. The threat is always going to be there. DeMeco Ryans and getting ready for Anthony Richardson, the conversation will be a whole lot different than it is for Anthony Richardson or for Gardner Minshew. Like 4th and 1, you know how that would have looked for Houston the other night?
Oh, the play call. They're not running that exact same play.
Well,
yeah.
The Colts aren't running it, and Lord knows Houston can't defend it like they did. They would have had to say, coming out of that timeout, who's got 5? Who is accounting for him on that play in that moment? Even if you don't run Richardson a dozen times a game, which I think is too high, you still, based off him physically being in the game and based off the ability he has and whatever you do, whether it's 1 run a quarter, 2 runs a quarter, whatever that number is, you're still going to create that threat because he just brings that to the table. So, again, can you try and downgrade or limit 4 hits a game? And when you add up 4 hits over 17 games a season, that now is north of 60-something. 68, I think it is.
You're making me do 17 times 4 right now. It's 68.
I try to do it.
17 times 2 is 34 times 2 would be 68.
There we go. 68 hits. If you have 68 less hits on Anthony Richardson, and obviously he's not going to get hit on all 68 of those runs, do you create a longer season for him? Do you create more of a longevity? You're still going to have the explosive threat that he is. And on 3rd downs and 4th downs and in 2-minute situations and red zone opportunities,
sure,
you can still go to him, but you don't need to go to him on the first drive of the second quarter on a 1st and 10 every single game.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. Let me go back real quick. You mentioned the 4th and 1 and how, everything, all the play call in there would be different with Anthony Richardson. You know what play call would have been the most different of all of them? The 3rd down call. Not even the 4th down call, because remember, they just did a basic up-the-middle play with Jonathan Taylor. We can move on from that, but I've been meaning to say that the last few days. With Anthony Richardson, yeah, the 4th down call would have been different. Well, so would have the 3rd down call when it was 3rd down and 2. That would have been different.
Honestly, my biggest takeaway Richardson-related from yesterday was Chris Ballard saying that, maybe the biggest surprise he has exiting last season with Richardson is he feels like this guy is a legitimate passer.
Right, in the pocket, right.
And he can play from the pocket. And that phrase, playing from the pocket, is a big one that Ballard has said in previous years before the Colts settled on a franchise quarterback. He has often said, at some point, the run threat goes away for these guys. At some point, either you just aren't the same athlete you were at 22, at 28 or 29, or injuries start to pile up and you can't be as effective as a runner. So then, can you deliver from the pocket? And he felt like, in the sample size he saw from Richardson, that he can be a legitimate passer there and that throw it accurately. And, if you look at the raw numbers, 59% was the completion percentage. That's not going to wow you. Again, I've said with Richardson, if he can hover to 62, 63 in that area, he creates enough big plays. You don't need methodical dink and dunk sort of 72% passing guy for him to be truly, truly effective. But I thought that was an interesting comment from Ballard yesterday that in 170 snaps, he felt like he saw enough out of Richardson as a passer that this is a guy that can play from the pocket moving forward.
Yeah, I'm struggling with something here with this entire debate. I'm not saying it's a bad debate, but I wonder how much of this is just a fool's errand. And what I mean by it is, I think, threefold. Number one, and you said it, Steichen is the man that we need to ask about this. And I know he's talked about it. I know yesterday was meeting with Chris Ballard, and it was meeting with Anthony Richardson. But Shane Steichen has called those 1st down runs for Anthony Richardson. That's not Anthony Richardson pulling a Jameis Winston and saying, instead of throwing deep to Alec Pierce,
YOLO.
YOLO, I'm going to run the ball up the middle and, take any sort of hit. So they have done that. To me, that is very much a Steichen thing. Is Steichen not Anthony Richardson? And even what Chris Ballard thinks, how much does Shane Steichen, and he's even alluded to it, that, hey, we drafted this guy to be this. So how much does he think we need to lessen the run, especially on those, the third possession of the game, a 1st and 10 in a 3-0 football game against Cincinnati, okay? How much does he need to change it? The other thing is, I'm a firm believer in this, and Ballard talked about it with Andrew Luck. I feel like when they get into the game, I'm sure you have felt this way on radio before. You've got a radio show planned out. We're going to do this. We're going to play this sound. We're going to have this caller and a guest and everything else. And then you get on air and it's like, okay, it's kind of blown up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been through that at our jobs. So when Anthony Richardson gets in game, our conversations leading up weekly to Anthony Richardson and how many and which types of hits he takes, how does that actually translate when Richardson has that split second in his mind of, do I plant the foot, turn it up, do I try to run somebody over, or am I going to try to slide or get out of bounds? And then the other thing...
Now remember, the first play of the Rams game.
No, he laid down. No, he did.
After the concussion.
And he got the Bronx
his
cheer.
First play back, he slid on the first play.
He got the cheering from the Colts. So it's something that will be in his mind. How much will he be fighting that, much like Chris Ballard said Andrew Luck fought that? And then the other thing, and it's just got to be said, the injuries that he sustained last year, I don't think fit into this conversation. The Titans injury that knocked him out for the season, that could have happened to Gardner Minshew. That could have happened to anybody. And then the Houston play, I mean, yes, he let up. That's something that you hope he doesn't do again. But that sort of play is what makes him dynamic. That sort of play is something you're going to see a lot of from him, which got him into the end zone. 4 games, 4 rushing touchdowns for Richardson. So it's a worthy debate. I don't know what we're going to do the next several months harping on this. Well, is he going to change his style? If nothing else, one of the takeaways could be, Richardson came out and said, I'm going to be me. And I wonder if there are fans saying, well, that's great that you're going to be you, but you're not going to play anywhere close to 17 games.
Well, again, that's why I put a lot of it on Steichen, just to dial it back a little bit, dial back some of those design runs a little bit. I also found it, I guess, interesting that basically Ballard's overall thoughts on Richardson are kind of like his team thoughts, where he's not sure yet, but he's encouraged. That's kind of where he's at with Richardson. I think Richardson, he's got a little bit more individual confidence in that. But, it's one of those things where don't crown him yet, but we are encouraged by what we saw. And he said something to the effect of like, we have work to do in regards to Richardson, and he has work to do. And when I hear the we have work to do comment from Ballard in describing Anthony Richardson, it goes back to what I think is the number one key this offseason. And that is, how do you support him? Because when you say he has work to do, okay, that's development on Richardson's end. When you say we have work to do, to me, that means how do we put the personnel around him that better suit him moving forward? And this gets into, I think, a discussion that we'll have, for the next 2 months. Free agency, I think, is 2 months from tomorrow, Andy, it's the first time we've ever seen Chris Ballard build with a rookie contract quarterback. And while the year-long cap hits to Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz and Phillip Rivers weren't there, they were still big financial commitments in that year or two window. And Chris Ballard doesn't need much to be frugal in free agency. So how much did that kind of hinder him at all, or, whatever, create even more hesitancy around this time of year? And does now, having more flexibility with the rookie contract quarterback, what does that do for you? I think that is a legitimate question that I have here, because again, north of $70 million is a big, big number. But certainly you have some in-house guys that you would want to take care of.
Yeah, you have a draft class, in-house guys, and everything else. Last one on this, because I want to get to the back and forth you had with Bradley, or about Gus Bradley with Chris Ballard. We have a couple callers as well. Reminder, about 11 minutes from now, top of the hour, Greg Rakestraw going to join us. The number here that I have on my iPhone, I'll show the YouTube audience, is 461. That's the number over just the last 3 years that Jalen Hurts has carried the football. And the only reason I bring it up in this conversation is, Steichen coached, and not his entire career, obviously, so the numbers are skewed. And I just wonder because Jalen Hurts enters this postseason as a broken man. And this is a guy who is consistently over averaging double-figure rushes a game, a guy that has taken some hits, a guy that gets up pretty damn slow if you've watched the Eagles. And I just, we're talking about Anthony Richardson. It all looked good the last couple years, did it not? Jalen Hurts running the football. He's running the football a lot. And now this year, it's like he's running the football. He's taking those hits. And now those little hits are starting to add up a little bit. Again, the last 3 seasons, he's really been the full-time starter there in Philadelphia. 461 carries for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah,
just something worth watching.
Again, we've gone over this exercise probably a couple months ago when Richardson went down and was lost for the season, but no matter who you want to look at from a dual threat standpoint, they all have reached a point where they just no longer can do that. If you even look going back, I guess generations might be too big of a statement, but if you want to look at Steve McNair's early rushing numbers,
sure.
Donovan McNabb's early rushing numbers, certainly Michael Vick would fall into that group. Obviously, Lamar Jackson has stayed healthy this year, but that hasn't been the case in the last 2 ends to seasons either.
All right, let's get this quickly here. We need to get to this because this was the other thing that I thought was newsworthy. All the Gus Bradley conversation, it's been out there. Now this is your back and forth. So this is Ballard and Bowen. Is he under contract? What are we thinking about Gus Bradley next year?
Gus under contract for this coming season.
Yes, he is.
28th in points allowed each of the last 2 years. What do you point to?
Yeah, no, I know that's been a hot topic for everybody. And look, it's an area we have to improve. But look, in a little bit of defense, the year before he comes in and, we kind of had I don't want to say a veteran team, but we had some veteran players. And then I just said, look, we're going to go young in some spots. And we went young in the secondary. And look, there's some rough moments at times in the secondary. And I don't completely put that on them. I put that more on me. But how do you ever develop any continuity especially with your own guys if you don't just play them? So I decided to go young. We took our lumps at times, but I think it's going to pay off down the line for them. I think we had 5 or 6 new starters on defense. We did do some good things now. It's not like it was all bad. The points do got to come down. We'll continue to have long discussions about where we're going and how we'll get that done. But saying that, we had new starters on defense. We did do some good things too. We got after the passer pretty good. I think it's got to get a little better, but 51 sacks, pretty good. Took the ball away. We would need to be a little better there in that area. And we've got to take away the explosives. But I would expect to see us take another jump here this year on defense.
You expect him back?
What's that?
You expect him back, I assume.
Who's that?
Gus.
Yeah. Yes.
So again, under contract, they expect him back.
What's your read of this situation with Gus Bradley?
They seem very content with the philosophy that he brings defensively. And it's a tad head-scratching to me.
Fans disagree with it. This is the thing they most disagree with, right?
Yeah, and it's head-scratching to me because, again, it differs so much from how Shane Steichen kind of views things. And I just think you can't fall into the trap of being complacent and being accepting of a defense that's just complimentary. Hell, if you look at the Colts' 2006 Super Bowl run, that offense was not at a championship level during that Super Bowl run. It was the defense that rose to a Super Bowl level. Sure, your offense can carry you and do a lot of heavy lifting, but have we gone over the weather for this weekend? Have we gone over what it looks like in Kansas City? Have we gone over what it looks like in Buffalo? If you don't bring your defense, you got no shot in these weather games that look like, Tua and Mahomes and Josh Allen, and I guess Mason Rudolph probably doesn't need weather to be stymied, but, these passing offenses could be stymied big time. So it also is a reminder of Jim Irsay signed off on Chris Ballard's approach. Jim Irsay said, go ahead and go with the youth movement. I assume he said that. Clearly Ballard has gotten away with it. I don't know is the right term for it, but I just cannot exit this season, Andy, and look at 28th in points allowed without a big turnover number. And I mean the Colts committing turnovers. Last season, the Colts committed a lot of turnovers. That can kind of explain a little bit of 28th in points. 28th in points in this season, when you weren't that high in giveaways against those quarterbacks,
Yeah, I did the numbers.
Yeah.
If you look
I don't follow.
If you look at total offense numbers, the average they faced was 19th in the league in total yards, and in points was 18 and a half. So they faced on average, the teams that they faced this year were right there in the middle to back end, if you will, of the NFL in total yards and total points.
And that's a little skewy
It
because
is a little
Cleveland
skewed.
with Flacco is not Cleveland with P.J. Walker.
100%.
Cincinnati with Burrow is not Cincinnati with Jake Browning. Hell, even Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett is a little different than Pittsburgh with Mitchell Trubisky in that lineup. All right, Greg Rakestraw coming up on the other side. Joel A. Erickson to talk a lot of Chris Ballard coming up at 9.
The Ride with Jay. The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, winners here. It's the 8 o'clock hour. Be safe out there, everybody. If you're going into work, going about your day. If not, just be inside. Dial us up right here on The Fan, or you can always check us out on the YouTube as well. Let's go on out to the Payless Liquors Hotline. Greg Rakestraw joins us at 8 o'clock here every single Friday. And, Greg, I got passed a note. I mean, this is pretty cool. Greg's going to be hosting a new show here Wednesday, 6 o'clock on the Horizon League called On the Horizon, Greg. So, first of all, congratulations. What's the setup of the show going to be, do you think?
Sure. So this will be a build-up to the Horizon League men's and women's basketball tournament being here in Indianapolis. They play the first and second rounds on campus sites. They bring the semifinalists here to Indianapolis and play on back-to-back days. So what it'll be kind of a weekly update as to what's going on around the league. You'll hear from the players of the week each week. You'll hear from top coaches. You'll hear from kind of other personnel in the league office, other college basketball newsmakers, alums, etc.
Cool.
But basically what it's going to be is a 1-hour window each week to kind of let people know, hey, there's this really cool college basketball event that is entering its 5th year at the Indiana Farmers Coliseum, and we're going to let you know more about it. So 60 minutes dedicated to the Horizon League each week, and it starts next Wednesday.
Rake, are the Mastodons still leading that conference?
Depending on what happened on Wednesday night. So IUPUI kind of had the early flyer on Wednesday, playing a noon game against Green Bay and lost. But going into Wednesday, Fort Wayne had a half-game lead, but the top 8 teams in the league were separated by a game. And I kind of think that's what it's going to play out the rest of the way. I'm not sure there's that big of a difference between the top 5 or 6 teams in the league.
He is a great Greg Rakestraw. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Let's go back to what we just chatted about before you came on, Rake, and that was Chris Ballard's comments from yesterday. I'm sure you saw some, if not all of it. Any grand takeaways by what the GM had to say after year 7 heading into year 8?
No, just kind of what we had talked about in general in terms of, hey, it's a disappointing end. Significant progress was made. I described it on the post-game show as now you're worried about the micro and not the macro. There's the obvious, to some degree, concerns about Anthony Richardson because you didn't see the full sample size, but what you did from a small and then just kind of, off the field in the locker room, you kind of like everything about him. Off the top, the I wouldn't say admission, but the acknowledgement of, listen, you can be a little more aggressive in free agency because you've got a quarterback on a rookie deal for the next 4 years. And just because, you've got some key pieces that you have to make a decision about re-signing, but there is still some room under the salary cap for this team. Obviously Chris wouldn't talk about, specifics, but you're looking in the neighborhood of $70 million. Again, a good chunk of that's going to go to guys you want to bring back. But at the same time, because your draft pick is kind of mid-round, you're not going to invest a lot of money in terms of the guys you're going to draft. So just at what position or where do you look at maybe bringing in a veteran free agent or two? So, that kind of catches your attention. But Kevin, as I'm sure you would agree, Chris is really good at these big picture talks at the end of the year. It's a good kind of insight into the franchise, and clearly the franchise is in a much healthier spot than it was at this time 12 months ago.
Greg Rakestraw with us here on The Fan on this Friday, joins us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Can I go back to just your thoughts on, the end of the game, but not only that, just the loss itself, from Nico Collins kind of going wild to at the end, the 4th and 1 call, the 3rd and 2 call, all the happenings that went on there. What did Greg Rakestraw think as you're watching this game? The Colts had every single chance, and then in the end, unfortunately, not only was it heartbreak, but the next day, Jacksonville spits the bit. You could be sitting here hosting a playoff game tomorrow afternoon in Lucas Oil.
Yeah, obviously disappointing is the easiest word to use. In terms of the final play call, I understand not giving Jonathan Taylor the ball just because it was clear that he was playing hurt at the end of the game and didn't have the same acceleration or burst. So, and again, that goes part and parcel with not only was Jonathan Taylor playing hurt, Braden Smith wasn't playing at all. did everything he could to try to play the last couple of weeks and just couldn't go anymore at the end of the game. And so that makes 4th and 1 a little bit more dicey. At the same time, if you're not going to give him the ball, at least have him on the field. Again, I also understand the play got the guy open in terms of Goodson. I'd still rather see again, not the way that was designed, but I'm still like, hey, if you're going to give me, the RPO that this team has been known for and run seemingly more than anybody else in the league, use guys like Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr. Make sure you have your best players involved in the play. So throw could have been a lot better, and even though it's behind the running back, you still got to catch if it hits you in the hands. And I'm sure that will be something that will be in the mind of Shane Steichen from now until not just next season, but now for the rest of his
forever
career.
Yeah.
You file that away for future use. Yeah.
He is Greg Rakestraw. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. We got Marion County semifinal action coming up later tonight. We'll chat with Rake about that in just a second. I want to ask you one more Colts-related one. I think it's easily the most notable list of in-house free agents in the Ballard era. I would kind of tier 4 of them above the rest. That would be Michael Pittman Jr., that would be Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore, and Julian Blackmon. Of those 4, Pittman, Stewart, Blackmon, Moore, who's the easiest to replace?
Probably Julian Blackmon. And again, I think that, again, I'm not sure what the market's going to be for him. Kind of like I would say about Kenny Moore. I think there's a chance that all 4 guys are back because, again, it is, Chris's MO to invest in your own and kind of regardless of position, if you think that player is of quality and kind of fits the culture of the team, then you're going to bring them back. But again, you have to acknowledge injuries have played a part in virtually every season that he has been here. And even in a year where he played really well and was healthy until late, a late injury cost him space on the field. Plus, you've got Rodney Thomas, you've got Nick Cross. And again, Rodney wasn't playing as much at the end this year. You've got to read something into that. It's not just, hey, Nick Cross has been playing better. No, it also means that the guy in front of him left an opening there as well. I think somehow, some way, Michael Pittman Jr. will be back. I think Grover Stewart will be back. And again, it's obviously a different Kenny Moore over the course of the last couple of years from his outlook as to what the market is going to bear out into more of, I think, what his role is going to be here. I've always thought that of those guys, Blackmon was maybe the most likely to not come back. But at the same time, I also am not sure exactly what the open market is going to dictate to him, which may make him affordable to keep for this football team.
Greg Rakestraw with us here on The Fan. Before we get to some high school stuff, I know your schedule obviously is going to be busy. I might as well ask about the Pacers. This week we've been talking a lot about Halliburton goes down, what I've described as a grim scene where he's being taken off, the towel over the head, and everything else. So be reevaluated in about 2 weeks. We know this West Coast trip is coming up in Atlanta tonight, and then out west the Pacers go. How do they keep their head above water? And then I guess just your thoughts on the scene there. Halliburton kind of does the splits, and the first thing you're thinking is, oh boy, how long is he going to be out?
Andy, welcome to the nightmare of Pacers fans. Just because
so I've learned.
In the days after Reggie Miller, we have seen this play out. I mean, it starts with Paul George in Las Vegas. It goes to Victor Oladipo here, and you're just like, this can't be happening again, right? I am not one to believe in curses or continued bad luck. But, man, I was thinking about it the other night. I mean, you're just like, I've seen this script before. This is the next guy, and it seems to be, you put Paul George in a class over Victor Oladipo in terms of the extended period of time in which Paul had played well for this franchise and the level to which PG had carried them at least the Eastern Conference Final. Victor was more of a one-year wonder and a comet. And that team, while taking the Cavs to 7, that was in the opening round. So let's put those two guys in different strata, even though injury stories are easy to compare, kind of the two. Halliburton is much closer to George. I don't think he's surpassed him yet, but he's clearly kind of on that track. But you just have in your mind, last week he's the leading vote getter in the NBA All-Star game that's going to be played in your building. And he gets hurt less than a week later. Now, thankfully, the news clearly is better than what the opening moments of how that felt indicated. And so, if he's going to play in 2 weeks, which is probably closer to 3 or 4, in other words, going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, you're just trying to kind of, claim as many wins as you can. There's going to be some nights of ugly. It was a wonderful rally by the team to beat the Celtics. You get the luck of the draw in terms of the Wizards. You get a Hawks team that's not great, but a Hawks team's probably waiting for you after you embarrass them last Friday night, coming up this Friday night. For the Pacers, is just kind of try to get through this as best as you can. Try to be as close to 500 without him as you possibly can. This gives other guys a chance to showcase their skills while he is out. As long as this is short-term and not long-term, I think this can be a blip on the radar of this season.
Yeah, 6-game road trip. Where do you sign up for 2 and 4? If I was Rick Carlisle, that's kind of where I'm at here, heading into the longest road trip of the season. He is Greg Rakestraw. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Rake, Marion County semifinals tonight from the great Southport Fieldhouse, North Central and LN at 6. The game to follow, Franklin Central and Warren. Did we expect those 4 to be at Southport?
The only surprise, I think, will be Franklin Central, although it's not a massive surprise. They beat Ben Davis by 3. They've won a couple of very close games to get to this point. And they were a young team last year that took their lumps. So even though there was a coaching change, and the guy that coached them last year, and Chris Byers, and I'll be back on the other sideline with Warren Central, you knew there was talent in the pipeline at Franklin Central. So this is their first Marion County semi in 10 years. They have not won this event in 2007. The other teams are kind of the usual suspects, and LN is clearly the top team in Marion County this year because they're one of the best teams in the state. North Central is solid, even if they're young, just 2 seniors, both of them play significant minutes. And Warren Central is just tough. Warren Central is not going to be mentioned in terms of the top teams in the state, yet they have the chance to knock off anybody they play because, again, they have young talent that's been there forever, guys like Zeke Kirby and Javon Guest that are both third-year starters, and they're just juniors. So, again, LN is the favorite, but it's not guaranteed that LN wins both games, let alone tonight. There will be pretty competitive games, all 3 that get played the next 2 nights at Southport Fieldhouse.
Rake, if I gave you the 2 teams with the byes, if I gave you Baltimore and San Francisco and I get the field, would you feel better about what you've got or what I've got in winning the Super Bowl?
I'd take the 2 teams with the byes. And again, I think the difference is more pronounced in the NFC than it is the AFC. And, history tells you somebody's going to come up lame at some point in time. You will not see the best effort of one of the 1 seeds. So maybe there's a little more competition, I would say, in the AFC. But treat this like the NCAA tournament. If you give me the chalk, I think I've got a better chance. It would not surprise me if we see a Ravens-Niners Super Bowl rematch from a little more than a decade ago.
And we saw that game just a few weeks ago in the regular season. Rake, great stuff, man. What's on the docket for this weekend for you?
So Marion County semis tonight, Brownstown, Carmel tomorrow. Those are my games. We will have all 3 games coming up this weekend from Southport Fieldhouse. Both nights, free streams at ISC Sports Network and IHSATV.org. Again, television with a doubleheader tonight and television to see Jack Benner. Fingers crossed, because we've had Brownstown 3 times this year, and he's not played in any of the games. It's our final chance to see him during the regular season. He played both games last week, so we're hoping we'll see Jack Benner, that's bound for Purdue, tomorrow night at the Eric Clark Activity Center.
Boy, and Rake, I'm just now seeing this from Kyle Nedderup. I can't believe 30-year anniversary of Blue Chips coming up. Frankfurt's going to do a little tribute for that Saturday night.
And I'm glad you brought that up, too, because that is actually going to be on our network as well. So we actually help the Frankfurt kids, their students. They have something they call the Hot Dog Network, where they produce games. We help them with some announcers and things like that. But we will be doing that game tomorrow night as well. And, yes, there will be Western University Dolphins gear. And if you have never been inside Case Arena, it's a bucket list in terms of Indiana gymnasiums. You got to check that out. But they do a wonderful job of featuring like the history of that program, and there is very much a Western University Dolphins display as you walk in to Case Arena in Frankfurt. So ISCSportsNetwork.com will have that one tomorrow night as well, as it is retro night, knowing that that movie was produced 30 years ago and hit theaters either spring or summer of 1994.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures of that arena. That is a cool-looking arena. The pride of Brandon Crone and the Frankfurt Hot Dogs there coming up tomorrow night inside of Case Arena. Rake, thank you, my man.
See you guys.
That's Greg Rakestraw right there, Payless Liquors hotline. If I threw that one at you, Baltimore, San Francisco, or the field?
Yeah, I disagree with Rake on that one.
You're going field?
I would take the field. Here's why. I'm still not a believer in Lamar Jackson in the postseason. What is he, 1-3? I need to see it. Listen, Baltimore is the best team. He's the MVP. I'm not taking away anything that those teams did in the regular season, but I need to see it. I need to see the deep run from the Baltimore Ravens. That would be number one. And then number two, does it come down to how much do you believe in Brock Purdy? And I have been fighting with that all season because I'm not a Brock Purdy lover.
But you're skeptical of the Cowboys, so walk me through this NFC for you.
No, I know I hate the Cowboys.
Well,
I'm not skeptical of the Cowboys.
There you go. All right. I stand corrected.
I hate the Cowboys. I don't want to see it happen. But if you gave me all these teams, I get the wild card weekend teams essentially, and you get those two teams. Again, Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy. Can Brock Purdy win a Super Bowl, take a team to the Super Bowl? The rest of that team is locked in. I understand you're going to have to go up there in San Francisco, Santa Clara. I get it. And then can Lamar Jackson kind of get all those demons out that he's had in the postseason? So if you're giving me those two storylines or everybody else, I guess I'll take everybody else. What would you do? I think you're taking Baltimore and San Francisco, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I like Dallas, but it's hard to get away from the one seeds at home. I think I understand the Lamar conversation. I also think this is the best he's walked into a playoffs of the whiteout group. I know the Mark Andrews injury is big, but with Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham and Rashard Bateman's had a few moments. I mean, there's just a little bit more to work with here from a pass catcher standpoint. And then on the flip side, I just think San Francisco, they don't need that much from Purdy. Like, if he can just be competent, assuming McCaffrey's healthy, Debo, McCaffrey, and Kittle, it speaks for itself there. So, and of course, home field no matter what for those teams. And it seems like both of the two seeds, there's just a little bit of question mark. I mean, Buffalo could have not been in the playoffs.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Here at the final week of the season. And with Dallas, as you've laid out, so eloquently, they have not had playoff success really at all here, especially as of late. So again, a reminder for tomorrow, 2 games, Texas and Browns at 4:30. Cleveland is a road favorite there by 2. Kansas City with a wind chill hovering around, 25, 30 below. 8 o'clock kick from Arrowhead. They are a 4.5-point favorite over the Dolphins. That is Tyreek Hill's return game to Arrowhead. And then Sunday, Buffalo, the biggest favorite of the weekend, 10 points over the Steelers at 1 o'clock. Cowboys and Packers, the biggest over-under of the weekend, 49 points. Dallas, a touchdown favorite over Green Bay. The Lions at home, a field goal favorite over the Rams on Sunday night. And then to round things out, 2 banged-up quarterbacks in Jalen Hurts and Baker Mayfield. A Philly, a slight road favorite over Tampa.
I saw our guy Mark Dykton before he goes in to do whatever he's going to do here. He said we also need to give him our pick. So at some point here on the show, we need to tell people who's going to win so they can fade against us and make some money this weekend. I have 3 quick questions before we get to a morning check down for you. You ready for this,
Yes.
Kevin? All right, just about this. Number 1, if the Colts were in the playoffs and going to Kansas City, how would we view the cold weather and what the Colts have? a good thing, bad thing, an offensive line, Jonathan Taylor, short passing game.
The Colts can't throw it in a controlled climate. Who cares if it's terrible weather? Yeah.
Exactly. Hey,
did you see Jonathan Taylor on Saturday night?
I'm with you.
I think that would work.
Listen, I'm with you. I want to throw that one out because these are storylines we could have been talking about.
But they would be hosting Cleveland.
That's the other thing, and that's the bigger thing was if they were hosting Cleveland, what would be what would the Joe Flacco conversation today be like on a Friday? Because Flacco's a fun little story. We have fun with Flacco, and now you got to play Flacco.
I think there'd be a lot of orange in the building.
There's no doubt there'd be a lot of orange. And then my third thing to stew on: how much are Colts fans rooting against the Texans now? Because for now, the Titans are off to the side. Vrabel, the big bully's gone in the AFC South. They are in a rebuild, and they're in a rebuild with Will Levis. Okay? So, I'm not, the Titans right now, you can hate the Titans, but I'm pushing the Titans aside. We'll see who they hire, how they build that team. Jacksonville, just a face plant from Jacksonville where their coach goes, hot seat, Trevor Lawrence, maybe not quite the upside, the quarterback that we thought. They're going to lose Josh Allen maybe off their team. Jacksonville, very questionable the way they ended the season with what they should have been, could have been. They're a team that I just can't write in for 10 wins next year, winning the AFC South next year. I'm not ready to do that. Wasn't ready to do that this season. Definitely not next season. So the Texans had the season that the Colts kind of wanted to have. New coach. They got to see their quarterback become the star, one of the stars, one of the talks of the NFL. They make the playoffs. They beat you at the end. They actually win the AFC South. So, but I haven't felt that there's been, I don't know if hate's a strong word, but sports hate. Yeah. I haven't felt that with Houston. Do we feel that now? Are we rooting for Cleveland to win on Saturday?
Yeah, Houston is the new boyfriend that you liked before they became the new boyfriend.
Fair enough.
You want to be that. I want to date her. I don't want him. He's a nice guy, but I don't want to be. Yeah, I want to be there. I want to be 4:30 tomorrow. I want Tarico or whoever's calling that game.
Quinn is shaking his head. He's in high school. A lot of high school drama with boyfriends and girlfriends, I assume. So there you go. So we're rooting against the Texans because I'm good with that.
Plus, rooting against the Texans, I like the Cleveland feel-good nature to it. And that's more towards the fan base, not necessarily towards Deshaun Watson. By the way, for those that missed it yesterday, I encourage you all, maybe wait till 10 o'clock, but Rick Venturi on with JMV, beyond outstanding yesterday in recapping the Colts season on a variety of topics. And the thing about Rick, defines honesty. And I think his answer is Michael Pittman related, really detailed in that. I think, explains it very well from a fan versus a GM standpoint, and certainly has some opinions on the Colts' defensive approach as well. We'll continue to play Chris Ballard audio coming up here. Leading into Joel A. Erickson at 9 o'clock as we recap yesterday's press conference from Chris to end the season. Before all of that, we do got some hoop talk to get to here on the Morning Checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, it is road life for the Indiana Pacers. The longest road trip of the year is upcoming. It is at Atlanta tonight, 7:30. Is that right? I should have double-checked that. It's a different start time, right?
It is 7:30. We'll have the coverage here on the Fan at 7 o'clock.
Don't know if the happy hour at Magic City is pushing back that start time tonight, but nonetheless, it'll be Pacers and Hawks. 6-point underdog, Indiana, without Tyrese Halliburton. Jalen Smith questionable, as well as Aaron Nesmith. Best record in the NBA since Christmas. 8-1 Pacers. Andy, I just said it to Greg Rakestraw. 6-game road trip. If Rick Carlisle was presented, you can go 2-4. I would sign in Sharpie. You agree, disagree?
I hate to agree, but I do agree. 2-4. You have to, don't you? With who they're playing out west, you're going to be on a back-to-back.
Two back-to-backs.
Two back-to-backs, yeah. Don't you have to go to – I know that's loser mentality, but I wish I could get to 3-3 on this. That might be a little bit greedy, but 2-4, I'd sign up for it.
2-4 would put you 24-19 with Halliburton maybe only missing one more game. Obviously, we're still very much up in the air on when exactly his return would be, but I think that would keep the ship afloat. And then obviously, hopefully, you get Halliburton back here before the end of the month. So after Atlanta, as Andy said, it is out west, beginning with the back-to-back Denver and Utah. That's Sunday afternoon against Denver. And then Monday night in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, quickly, college basketball. Indiana back in action tonight, 6:30. You can watch that on FS1. You
and
can
no
hear
suspension for Xavier Johnson going towards the junk?
I don't think Woodson has he ever suspended anybody? It's been handled internally.
Well, didn't
Kevin.
they have all those guys like leave the hotel before the Northwestern game?
Well,
Do you remember that?
They had Mackenzie and Baco. They had that incident. Still, him being pulled from his large body being pulled out the window of a car at a Taco Bell.
I want a gordita.
That's a strong one. The cheesy gordita. Do they have the cheesy potatoes? That's what you need at 1 o'clock in the morning. But they have Minnesota 5:30 hour coverage over on IBC, and Purdue Fort Wayne in action tonight 7 o'clock at Robert Morris. Purdue and Penn State. That one tomorrow at 2:15.
I saw kind of a crazy stat on Purdue. So they lose 88-72 at Nebraska earlier this week. They hit, I think it was 13 threes they hit in that game. It was their first loss hitting double-digit threes in a game since the infamous Elite Eight game against Virginia.
Wow.
And I think kind of our takeaway exiting that loss on Tuesday night was they just got to get out of their own way. I mean, they had 1 million turnovers against Nebraska, and obviously they gave up 88. But offensively, it's just if you can get out of your own way and not just gift it to the other team, you can shoot it well enough. Typically, Zach Edey is Zach Edey. You're going to be able to score at a very, very high level. Again, defense probably more of the issue, but obviously those turnovers contribute to some easy points there. But, Purdue shot it great on Tuesday night, but cannot get it done. So they've got Penn State, who is terrible, tomorrow afternoon. That is a 2:15 tip. Butler, Seton Hall. Seton Hall's had a really nice start here to this Big East season. They're 3-1 in the Big East, and all 3 wins over ranked teams. So important for Butler to continue to try and take care of business at home. Probably still need to steal another one at some point, but obviously coming off a big win at Marquette.
Just give us one more swoosh here. I have this teed up. Let's go ahead and play it. Chris Ballard, we have like 20 clips from Chris Ballard. We'll keep that going here on the back end of the show. Chris Ballard yesterday, one of the things he was asked about was Grover Stewart. Take a listen.
I think you know my feelings on Grover. He's my first year here. He's one of our first draft, picks, and he's done nothing but be a great Colt, a great teammate, everything you want. So, yeah, Grover's a guy we'd like to have back.
Who is the easiest of those big four to replace? I threw that question at Rake. I think it'll be a question I ask quite a lot in the next 2 months. Michael Pittman Jr., Kenny Moore, Julian Blackman, Grover Stewart. Easiest to replace.
Yeah, Rakestraw said Blackman, and I would have to go with. I would have to agree with that. One guy I did
you
look
guys
up.
watch Saturday night?
Well, who would you go with then?
I know I was snarky with that response. To me, it is such a tough question to answer.
No, it's a difficult
because
one.
I obviously watched the Colts play 6 games without Grover Stewart.
Without Grover Stewart, right?
And I think Quinn here in studio could have ran all over them. A little dual threat backfield here with Quinn and Corbin, honestly.
Thunder and lightning.
When you look at the Kenny Moore absence, we obviously didn't see it this season, really. He was pretty healthy throughout, but boy, the Kenny Moore backup was Tony Brown, and he's gone. So
let me ask you this, because we could even do this as a segment.
Probably Blackman.
Probably.
But man, there's no easy answer
it's
for
not
any
like
of them.
he's a good player. I mean, I'd love if you said, hey, Julian Blackman.
At least you have a Cross, and I guess you have a Rodney Thomas, but if you lose any of them, that becomes now a huge need.
Sure. If two things on this before we take a break. I have been looking at mock drafts. People love mock drafts. You guys, you love mock. You see a mock draft, you click on a mock draft. I have seen 2 offensive players, Brock Bowers, but I've also seen Keon Coleman, his name thrown in there, the wide receiver from Florida State, who's a good player, obviously. Maybe he goes a little bit higher. Some people think he's probably the 3rd best wide receiver, maybe of that crop, definitely behind Marvin Harrison Jr. But his name and a little bit of Brock Bowers, although I think he will be taken before Indianapolis. It drops to Indianapolis. That's just my thought. But the rest of them have been defensive backs, have been corners. Specifically, the 2 guys from Alabama, Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's got the best name. Obviously,
it was either Max or Kool-Aid is what we were going for Max Bowen.
Obviously, that's a great name. The marketing department's like, okay, if you draft him, Ballard, that's not too bad. The reason I ask that is if the thought is they go corner, does that mean then Kenny Moore would be the odd man out there? Or is it you get corner and you bring Kenny Moore back, and then some of the guys that did have to play this season would quite literally probably never see the field?
I'll share my thoughts on that and the needs that Chris Bauer talked about yesterday on the other side. It is the wake-up call with KB and Andy.
The Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show is this.
.1075 The Fan.
Well, Andrew WK to get you into work today.
That's
KB and
needed
Andy.
on a day like this with the weather outside.
It is. It's going to be nasty out this weekend. Then it's just going to get cold. What's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? We're going to be super cold. But hey, stay warm inside and watch the cold of the NFL. Watch the players try to figure things out there in Miami and Kansas City. We'll give you our picks. KB has a couple thoughts on the needs for the Colts. We'll get to that here in just a second. Reminder as well, coming up top of the 9 o'clock hour, Joel Erickson will join us, Colts insider there, beat writer for the Indianapolis Star. And some breaking news. Within the last 5 minutes, the new era in New England is finally set. Gerard Mayo, the next head coach, will be introduced at a press conference next week. Adam Schefter getting this story. KB, we had not mentioned it just for me. I want your reaction on this. So you look at, Bill Parcells, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, Gerard Mayo. Those are the last 4 coaches for the New England Patriots. And reading some stuff about this, Mayo's name last night, it was, there's been a lot of Vrabel talk there, and understanding why there would be a lot of Mike Vrabel talk. That kind of was dissipating last night, and the succession plan in Mayo being the next head coach last night really started to emerge. So I'm not surprised that this morning at 8:30 we get the news that Mayo is the next head coach there. And New England, I don't know if Patriot fans like that or not. I don't know if Colts fans like that or not, but definitely Belichick. And then, his successor is going to be one guy that he's got a great relationship with, and that's Gerard Mayo, who has been the DC there, defensive coach there, and obviously for Bill Belichick was a great player.
This has been kind of something that we felt like was there for the last couple of years, and then it was almost like when Vrabel became available, it's like, whoa, does that alter things? Does that change things? Because, Mayo was a guy last January, Andy, I'm like, wait a minute, can the Colts look into him? Or is this like Jim Boeheim is picking his successor, Coach K is picking, I didn't really know where we were at with Gerard Mayo. Like you said, he's been an assistant under Belichick for the last, 4 or 5 years. A great player, certainly for them. I think Colts fans will remember that name from those Patriot teams. And I thought I saw now he's the new youngest head coach in the league, just younger than Sean McVay, I believe. So to me, the biggest question is, what do you do at quarterback? And this is not an offensive head coach, but that's been the issue since Brady left. They have, the 3rd overall pick. So who his OC is and that development. You are seeing it right now. You're seeing it not work out in Chicago. Defensive-minded head coach, need to develop quarterback, not working out. Houston, and maybe this is more of a credit to C.J. Stroud. He didn't need a whole lot, but that is working out. That, I think, is a dilemma you run into with these defensive hires of you better make sure you've got the continuity offensively, or your quarterback just doesn't need a whole lot there. But this is the first one that has been filled now. So the other openings, what do we got? 7 of them? Is that right?
Yeah, we're down to 7.
Chargers, Falcons, Commanders, Titans, Seahawks, Raiders, Panthers.
It's okay to say this. I know, we're paid to have opinions and everything else. I have no idea what to expect from Gerard Mayo being the next head coach at New England. Do you? I don't know if that's a good hire. I don't know if it's a bad hire. I don't know if, he can, turn an organization around like Shane Steichen did or DeMeco Ryans did. I don't know if it's a long rebuild. I mean, that roster is pretty devoid of talent. And then on top of it, that's a beast of a division as well, with besides the Jets, of course, and maybe they get Aaron Rodgers and they are respectable, perhaps more than respectable. Miami is a double-digit win team. Baltimore with Josh Allen and the stability they have there. So I don't know if this is does he have to go now and get some great offensive coordinator to balance things? But they need everything. They need running backs. They need a quarterback. They need a plan on offense. Their wide receivers are not up to par.
Stinks.
No, it does. It does. Their defense very solid. What are the contracts there? I don't know if this is I don't know if it's a lazy hire. I don't know if it is Belichick, having his guy take over. I don't know if you're a Patriots fan if you say, listen, we need a break from the Belichick tree. Let's have an outside influence come in, someone who hasn't been around the Patriots for years, for decades. I don't know what to think. To me,
what does this mean for Vrabel?
I just kind of shrug my shoulders. I don't know. Does he go to he's got other jobs out there. Harbaugh's taking one of these jobs, right? We would agree with that. Harbaugh, so if we have 7 openings, we actually have 6 because Harbaugh's taking one of these jobs. And then Belichick is taking one of these jobs. Let's say Atlanta, okay? So we're down to 5. And then don't you feel like a couple of these teams are going to settle on coordinators? And you have Antonio Pierce that is part of the conversation. So I don't know. I don't know what Vrabel's going to do. Is there a team out there you think that fits his DNA? If you were a Patriots fan, would you rather have Vrabel or Mayo?
I think the Seahawks fit Vrabel.
You think the Seahawks fit Vrabel? I could see that.
But again, Dan
I
Quinn
got no
seems to
problem
be a
with that.
popular name with his history there. Obviously, the other big opening we discussed yesterday, and again, do want to get into those Colts needs and what Andy threw my way here in just a second. But some reports indicate we're down to 3 finalists in Tuscaloosa. Certainly 3 very different resumes. And Mike Norvell, Florida State head coach, Kalen DeBoer, obviously at Washington, and then Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator for Bama.
What do you think of Tommy Rees?
Trust me. I am with you there.
What?
I
said he ran a program.
I said it yesterday, and I know that Shane Steichen is a huge Tommy Rees fan. Very good chance that Tommy Rees would have been here had Alabama not come calling to be the OC. I don't know if that alters your opinion on the situation at all. Mike Norvell seems to be the one that makes the most sense in that, he's got ties to that part of the country. He obviously got Florida State to an undefeated season. I am kind of interested in that one because Mike Norvell to Alabama, does that mean Deion goes to Florida State?
Well, Deion said some things about Florida State. Remember, he's like, yeah, they shouldn't be in the college football playoff, and that people were upset about that.
Deion says a lot of things.
That's all he does is
you don't think Deion would want Florida State?
I don't know. I'm sure he would. Wouldn't he rather be in the state of Florida than out there in 30 below wearing cowboy hats in Colorado? I would imagine that's the case.
Recruit that state of Florida?
By the way, I'm not hating on Tommy Rees. It's just he hasn't ran a program, and that is
I think you burst out laughing when you said the name Tommy Rees.
That is the program. I'm a Mike Norvell guy. By the way, did you see the NCAA is going to punish Florida State football?
I did see that.
That
yes.
came out too. So you have Florida State football. Now they said that Norvell had nothing to do with it. It was NIL charges, of course, because everything in NIL is ridiculous. So you have Florida State dealing with NCAA stuff. You have Florida in a lawsuit with the ACC. You have Florida who wants to leave the ACC. You have Florida State who feels like they cannot win in the ACC, that they can go undefeated and be left out of the college football playoff. And I would add, Mike Norvell's stock has never been higher. You could never sell Mike Norvell to the Alabama faithful at any other point in his career. Not coming from Memphis or what he did the first couple years there in not Tuscaloosa, in Tallahassee. But now you probably could sell that. So I would be team Mike Norvell, and his buyout's only $4 million. Not that matters to an SEC school, especially Alabama, but that is a pretty minuscule buyout for a coach of his stature.
Anthony chiming in here. I've heard from a lot of Buckeye fans that they'd like for Vrabel to sit for a year and then take over for Ryan Day.
Well, Ryan Day's fine now. Harbaugh's gone at Michigan.
Is Harbaugh gone?
Okay, maybe he's not gone. I think he is gone, yeah.
That was my assumption, but I don't know. I feel like, I know it's only Friday, but.
Well, I would love for him to come back. You need those. I
want Harbaugh in the NFL again. I want Harbaugh and Jim Schwartz meeting in midfield again.
What if he hires Schwartz? Who was Schwartz the head coach of there? It was
Lions,
Yeah, it was the Lions, right? Yeah.
Now he's the DC, and is he the DC in Cleveland?
He's a DC in Cleveland. He could get...
Was it Schwartz chasing after Harbaugh or Harbaugh chasing after Schwartz?
No, it was Schwartz is doing the chasing, right?
He looked quick.
Yeah.
That was a good lateral move. He looked faster than
him
Matt Ryan last year.
Him and Harbaugh, a better meeting at midfield than what we saw with Arthur Smith and Dennis Allen.
Say maybe 2 to 3 positions of need. Chris Ballard indirectly probably labeled yesterday. We'll touch on that. And again, Andy said, what would you think of corner there at pick 15? What would that mean for Kenny Moore? We'll touch on that on the other side.
Where does everyone come together to cheer as one, to build traditions, to show pride?
Out there, it's going to be a wet day today and a cold weekend, and next week's going to be cold as well. So it's great to watch some college basketball. Pacers in action tonight. All the NFL. We'll talk about it here on The Fan. Reminder, Pacers are back in action tonight. They're in Atlanta, 7:30. That coverage, I should say, that tip-off, 7 o'clock the coverage tonight right here on The Fan. Okay, so let's dive into this. Chris Ballard alluded to a couple positions of need, and obviously if you're a fan or media, you watch the team, you think, okay, there's a couple different positions we may need, and then to tie it in with something I said, I know Brock Bowers and Keon Coleman, the wide receiver there at Florida State, you start looking at these mock drafts, there have been offensive guys tied to the Colts there, drafting in the, 15, drafting in the middle coming up in a couple months. The other prevalent position is corner, and I mentioned the two different corners there at Alabama being possibilities there in the middle parts of the first round. So what did you make of what Ballard said or didn't say, and kind of what's on your short list as we turn to that part of the offseason?
Well, let's put a little bow tie on what you just said there about corner at 15 and what it would mean for Kenny Moore. The one thing, the Colts drafted 3 corners last year. It was very notable. Obviously, they committed to a youth movement. But whether it's Juju Brents, obviously Darius Rush is no longer here. We saw Jalen Jones this past year. Or even go to Dallas Flowers, who got hurt early in the season, lost for the year when he tore that Achilles. Andy, they're all outside corners. Nobody's a nickel. Nobody's a slot. And that's what Kenny Moore plays. And that obviously is a position that has really, really grown here in the NFL over the last handful of years. So, and free agency is also a month and a half before the draft. So you're going to have to make a decision on Kenny Moore before you make a decision on, what you do at number 15. So if there's one little nitpick maybe from last year in drafting all those corners, I would have liked to have seen maybe one of them be more of kind of that inside slot guy where you maybe could pass the torch from Kenny Moore to that guy or maybe feel a little bit more comfortable. Because right now, nobody on the roster sniffs a replacement for him. As far as needs, basically indirectly, Ballard said guys that are more explosive offensively and guys that stop explosive plays defensively. We need to get more explosive, was what Ballard said. Now, I think there's an element of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor together can create a lot more of that. Remember, they played one snap together. And Ballard mentioned yesterday, Richardson, when he was in the lineup, I think the Colts were 10th in explosive plays. But Andy, when he was in the lineup, Jonathan Taylor wasn't next to him. You would think Richardson and Taylor together would give the Colts a legit top 10 explosive offense. Now, I still think you need to add a pass catcher to create even more of that explosion. I know Ballard falls into the camp of Alec Pierce will become a little bit more of a threat with Richardson at quarterback. But when you just look at that statement, we need to be more explosive. Again, personnel-wise, that means, in my opinion, another pass catcher, and then it means reinforcement in the secondary. So that is corner and safety. Clearly, you have big decisions on Kenny Moore and Julian Blackmon, but I still think even if you were to bring those two back, you need some reinforcements there because those are two dudes you just can't afford to lose. Look at what happened when you didn't have Julian Blackmon out there Saturday night.
So which way would you go right now? Because the sexy thing is give me Bowers or give me a Keon Coleman. That's the sexy thing.
I still like speed edge rusher. We can get into this debate a little bit more in the coming weeks, and I know Ballard was – his Kwity Paye answer yesterday was a little bit higher on him than I would be. If you look at the Kwity Paye pressure numbers, if you look at the disruptive nature to Kwity Paye's game, honestly, Andy, Tyquan Lewis brings more to the table than Kwity Paye playing half the snaps. So that if the right guy is there, the speed, twitchy to use a draft term, if the really twitchy speed rusher is there at 15, I'd probably go there first. But I do think wideout Bowers is very close on the list, and I don't think corner's too far. Those three are on a tier, but, man, that speed edge rusher, I just think that can do wonders.
Do you like Jared
defensively.
Verse from Florida State? Boy, that's getting into the weeds. I don't know if people have even seen
Dallas Turner
that much
out
of Florida
Bama
State.
Has been,
right.
I'm not going to try and pronounce the UCLA kid's name, but he's got some medical questions. But I think a lot of people like him as well. But if I'm going to tier it out, and again, we'll see what happens in free agency, but if I'm going to tier it out, I still think the speed rusher can cover up what you do in the secondary a lot. And if you, again, look at the consistent pressure numbers for Kwity Paye, if I'm going to give him that fifth-year team option, which is, I think, north of $13 million. That's a big number for a defensive end for an edge rusher. You better be a consistent pressure guy. And he's not that. He's not that. If you look at Tyquan Lewis, he's giving you more. Dayo Odengbo's giving you more. There were moments this past season, Andy, where I'd look down and I'd be like, wait a minute, 51's not even out there on third down. You would have DeForest Buckner. You would have Tyquan Lewis. You'd have Dayo Odengbo. Obviously, Samson Ebukam would round out those four. So, yeah, that's where I would go. I know there's also part of me, Andy, that goes there because I know it's the most scarce.
Sure.
Right now,
sure.
There are wideouts galore
right
in the draft. And, I mean, look at the best wideouts in the NFL right now. They're not all these first-round picks. I mean, hell, you had the one draft with what? Debo and DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin, and I think I'm forgetting somebody else, all in that second and third round range there. Whereas I feel like the edge rushers, boy, a lot of them go very, very early.
Now, let me ask you this as well. Now that Gus Bradley is settled in, he's back next year, but that doesn't mean he's back the year after, I mean, especially if they allow damn near 30 points a game, you probably look and say, okay, it's a couple years with Gus Bradley. If you miss the playoffs next year, it's like, okay, maybe we could do a little bit better. Is fit the worry at all with any position? Specific, I don't know. I guess I look at that in corner. I think everyone kind of wants the same thing at corner, but you know how you'll hear in the draft season, well, such and such likes those big corners, right? Like, who doesn't like a corner that's 6'2"
right. And Bradley's
or 6'3"?
obsessed with them. But, I mean, Bradley is obsessed with them, with the big, long corners. But I don't think they need that. I think now you need nickel. You need slot. You need Kenny Moore 2.0.
Yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry, like, he's an outside guy.
Yeah,
like, he's an outside, hey, I want to be a number one corner type guy. He's not an inside guy. I mean, he's not.
I think outside it's a trio of Dallas Flowers coming off the Achilles, Juju, and Jalen Jones, and you hope you see growth there. And part of it's just you can't constantly draft at every single position. You got to rank them a little bit, and I think nickel needs to rank higher.
Let me ask you this: If I gave you, and this is just fun draft talk, and we'll have months to do this. If I gave you on this snowy Friday or sleety, rainy Friday in Indianapolis.
I wish it was snowing. This weather, the rain sucks.
I'm with you, actually. If I gave you like a Keon Coleman, the third, perhaps fourth wide receiver in the first round, okay? If I gave you that or Brock Bowers, which one are you? See, and the reason I ask that is I don't think Bowers gets to the Colts. But I also don't know.
Bowers is a fun piece.
I just don't know what I don't know what to do because we've seen first round, some first round tight ends haven't quite worked out.
Kyle Pitts, Eric Ebron.
But Bowers is a beast, and like you said, you can get wide receiver, third round, fourth round. I mean, you can get
I think he's
a free agent.
I think he's a pretty shiny toy for Shane Steichen.
I mean, they just have very little at that position.
I know. There's part of me though, tight ends that early.
I know. That's what I'm struggling. Like, football-wise, it doesn't make sense.
Here on January 12th, I'd say no.
You'd say no.
But, boy, that
hurts you to say no.
That's a hard no.
Yeah, you're hurt right now.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying no, but I want to say yes. I want to say yes.
Yeah. Joel A. Erickson talking Chris Ballard next.
Query and Company.
Juju Brents, do players notice distractions?
In a sense, you kind of can if you're allowed to be a distraction. I would say our organization, our coaches.
Fan.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on this Friday. We'll get to later on some of our picks. We'll keep going with the Chris Ballard sound. Big weekend of the NFL. Reminder, Pacers in action tonight. We'll have it right here. 7 o'clock coverage on The Fan. Reminder as well, I should say, 1075thefan.com. Tons of content up there. KB's got all of his articles. I have my final regular season power rankings. I know Mark Dykton's always putting stuff up there as well. Corbin's got to write an article on Purdue basketball at some point this weekend. Boy, Purdue-Penn State, that should be a close one. 88-58, maybe. You'll see. I don't know. Penn State's that bad, aren't they? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, they are bad.
Yeah, they are pretty bad.
30.
Coming off that,
did I see
maybe closer to
UCLA
20.
lost by 40 last night?
Oh, and they were down. Yeah, they were down huge. Mick Cronin went from like, I'll go make a Final Four to being like, he's being so bad he might end up at Louisville. As the head coach, UCLA.
That was a stray towards the Card Nation.
Well, they got to hire somebody, and, that buyout's going down if you look at Mick Cronin, so he could even be fired. You might not even have to pay that. So all that's happening. Find the podcast, obviously. Podcast Center, 1075thefan.com. All right, Joel A. Erickson joins us from the Star. Colts beat writer. He joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Joel, good morning to you. Stay warm, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. You're throwing some basketball takes out there right before I came on. So some spice coming through Andy this morning.
Do you have a basketball take you want to get off your chest?
He's a Bruce Pearl guy.
I do like watching Bruce Pearl's teams. That's true. That is true, especially when they play like the press and 3 version of it.
And I don't even know who Missouri's coach is, Joel. Who is it?
Dennis Gates.
It is Dennis Gates, who I think is very good. The Missouri is not that good this year, but they were good last year. They're kind of running into a what do we do when we don't have Kobe Brown situation. But I do think Dennis Gates is good.
I interviewed I love Bruce Pearl, by the way. I interviewed Bruce Pearl at the Final Four last year, and we talked, you get these guys for like 9 minutes, and you can't go over the 9 minutes. We talked about he took his team to Jerusalem, and they went swimming in the Dead Sea. And that's what we talked about for
just an excuse for Bruce Pearl to take a shirt off again.
Yeah, so I'm a BP guy, man. I like me some Bruce Pearl. But you're right. I watched Missouri against Kentucky the other night. That's not the same Missouri team as last year. They're not quite as
no. They're not the same.
No, that talent level's not quite as high. So Joel A. Erickson with us here on the Fan on this Friday. Main takeaways. We've talked about team needs and the back and forth there with Gus Bradley and Anthony Richardson and his style of play and some of the things that the Ballard, just the frustration of not making the postseason and not winning the AFC South, but being encouraged, through it all, still being encouraged with what they have with Steichen and still with Anthony Richardson. What were your main couple takeaways from Ballard's 52-minute press conference yesterday?
Yeah, I think one of them was, he kept mentioning explosives on both sides of the ball. I think that maybe two different sort of threads going there where it felt like they feel like Anthony Richardson fixes, if he's healthy, fixes a lot of the explosives on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensive, I think they probably feel like they need to make some additions there. And then the other piece was just, we've heard Chris Ballard talk about expectations now for, 7-8 seasons. And he doesn't usually steer as hard into we need to make the playoffs and should be competing for division titles, which is what he said yesterday. I mean, it's kind of obvious. They were essentially 10 yards away from that this season, but he still, even in seasons where they made the playoffs, hasn't necessarily been quite that forceful about it. So that was my other big takeaway.
Joel, I might have been reading too much into this, but it seems like we've walked away from Chris Ballard's season-ending pressers, and in some way, shape, or form, he said, you guys know what free agency is. It's, spending A money on B players, spending B money on C players. I don't remember him getting on that soapbox yesterday, and late in the presser, he said something about, he was asked about wide receiver market, and he made the gas price analogy of like, if you want to drive your car and it costs $4 a gallon, you've got to spend $4 a gallon, and you've got to have wideouts, was kind of what he said. Even then, I was like, oh, boy, that's more of an acceptance, a reluctance acceptance, but I felt like that's what it was in relation to the wide receiver market. Was I reading too much into maybe like a softer Ballard stance on how the market works and dipping your toes into that market?
I kind of agreed with you, especially when he said early in the presser, that he felt like they had more flexibility going forward. He mentioned specifically that they don't have a quarterback on a rookie contract. I mean, I would throw out there they also have a left tackle on a rookie contract and aren't paying, at least at right now, any cornerbacks top. Like they're not paying some of these premier positions top dollar, so there is kind of flexibility there. I think we've all said that. I think it was a little bit surprising to hear him say it, just given his plays in free agency in the past. Now, the wide receiver stuff, is that him, telegraphing that Michael Pittman Jr. is going to get a lot of money this offseason? Maybe. But on the flip side, I think that there was maybe a world where that was a question going into the season, and it doesn't feel like so much of a question now, at least for me.
He's Joel A. Erickson. He watches Missouri basketball, and he's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Joel, we need to get more explosive. That was a phrase that he said a couple of different times yesterday. How much do you think that means we need to go find that outside of our building, and how much of that is, nope, Anthony Richardson with Jonathan Taylor and Alec Pierce being more of a deep threat will cure that?
I think that if you're looking for necessarily the super explosive, they're signing a number, like clearly defined. Say they bring back Pittman, and they bring back like a clearly defined number 2 who takes Pierce's job. I don't know if I'm taking Alec Pierce, and Pierce said, or his answer on Alec Pierce was basically, he does a really good job at getting down the field. We need to do a better job at getting the ball, that's kind of where I fall on Pierce, is that there were a lot of, I mean, if you look over the course of the season and go back and look at the tape, there's probably 10 to 12 shots down the field that they should have thrown to him. And I'm not talking about like contested 50-50 balls. I'm talking about like you can miss the throw badly and he'll still catch it for 40 yards because there's no one around him. So I do think that they feel a little bit of that. I wouldn't say, though, that they're necessarily opposed to adding somebody who can compete with him for that job. And I do think that they do believe that Anthony Richardson fixes a lot of that, because Ballard said very early on we were 10th in explosives before Anthony got hurt.
And Taylor only played one snap with him.
Right, yeah, because he did go into, you watched JT on Saturday night. You saw what a player like that can do. I mean, I think one of the other things with Taylor is, George Bremer and I looked this up a couple weeks ago, and I haven't updated the stats, but I know Zach Moss was something like a yard per carry better when in games that Anthony Richardson played versus games he did not play. And if you extrapolate that to Taylor, that's a whole different world.
Well, I just go back to the biggest play Moss had all season. Inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, what was it, 3rd and 1, the Tennessee game. Yep. 2 Tennessee defenders go to Richardson. Moss, who runs a 4.6 40-yard dash, is up the middle and looks like Usain Bolt in the open field because, those defenders were going towards Richardson. So, yeah.
Joel A. Erickson with us here. He's from the Indy Star here on the Payless Liquors hotline. I know we've touched on some of these guys here, but Pittman, we've kind of talked about the tiers of guys. Are they going to bring back free agents that are on the team? Pittman, Blackman, Moore, and Stewart. Any strong thoughts on either of those guys coming back? Maybe an odd man out as we look at the salary cap and what else they could bring in. Any strong thoughts on those 4 guys?
That's it. I kind of feel like right now at the start of the offseason, it kind of feels like all 4 are going to be back. I really feel pretty strongly about Grover Stewart. Ballard said we want him back. I think they got a taste of non-Grover Stewart life and probably didn't like it this year. And Grover said it. Julian Blackman, the safety market tends to be a little depressed, so I think there's probably a good price point there. I think if you're looking at one where maybe somebody swoops in outside of Pittman, because obviously wide receivers are super highly valued. Kenny Moore as a nickel corner and what some team or what another team might be willing to pay him, that's a position where people sometimes, the contract gets to the point where I think maybe Chris Ballard wouldn't feel great about it. Now, Kenny Moore wants to be here, obviously. He said that the other day. But if he somehow gets to free agency and, I don't know, some other team offers him a ton of money way above what the Colts are asking. Then I could see that maybe being a thing. Corner is one of those positions. Even the nickel, the slot corners have gone up recently the last couple of years. That's a position where the price can get high really fast.
Joel A. Erickson with us here on The Fan. All right, so the Gus Bradley conversation, I think that fans love Shane Steichen. Steichen came out and said as much. We're bringing, we like Gus Bradley. Continuity was his word. And then yesterday, the confirmation that Gus is under contract and will be back next season. Is that a surprise to you? And what is your read of the situation with the scheme? And I think this is going to be an area of disconnect potentially between fans and Ballard and, the people there with the Colts.
Yeah, and I think that maybe people are underestimating Shane Steichen's role in this. Just kind of drawing some links between stuff we've heard over the last week. Gus Bradley said last week, that Shane Steichen is very demanding and has a hand in everything. Chris Ballard said the same thing yesterday, and Gus gave us some specifics. He specifically mentioned the Cincinnati play, but I keep thinking back to Atlanta. I asked in the post-game press conference, the bad game for the pass rush, do you think about maybe you need to dial up pressure? And what Steichen actually said was he pushed back. He said something along the lines of, shoot, I would rather keep the explosive plays, keep those in front of you. I think maybe people underestimate the way Steichen views explosive plays. He has said since he got here that explosive plays to him are incredibly important in any game, and that means creating them on offense and keeping other offenses from doing it. And the way Bradley plays, playing back in the zone, forcing people to throw underneath, they did give up some explosives this year, but his system is sort of geared towards that. And I wonder if that doesn't play more of a role than we're talking about right now. It's just getting explosive plays on offense, but also limiting them on defense. That's Steichen's vision, and I wonder if that plays more of a role here than just they coached together for 4 years with the Chargers and continuity and some of that other stuff. I think that there's a philosophical alignment there that maybe we're underestimating.
He's Joel A. Erickson. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline, courtesy of the Indianapolis Star. Joel, I want to go back to the free agent in-house talk here for just a second. I asked this question to Greg Rakestraw earlier, and I'll throw it your way. Of the big four in-house guys, Michael Pittman Jr., Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore, Julian Blackmon, who's the easiest to replace?
It's probably Blackmon. We just saw Rodney McLeod do that role pretty well the year before. I know it was a terrible season, but McLeod was pretty good. He was on if I remember right, I think he was making $1.77 million a year. I think that's probably the easiest spot. You have to get a veteran. We've kind of seen that with them trying to get Nick Cross in that role, but I think that's probably the easiest one to replace. Wide receivers, I know some people kind of talk about Michael Pittman in this way. Really good wide receivers do not hit the open market. They just don't. You're not going to have do we pay Michael Pittman, $23-24 million, or there's another guy in the top 12 in receptions who's also available in free agency for that kind of money. That's just not going to happen. I think I would have to say Blackmon.
Moving on to Anthony Richardson, we heard from him yesterday as well. A lot of playing style related questions to him, also to Chris Ballard. What was kind of your grand takeaway, Richardson related? I thought Ballard had an interesting comment about, he feels like he can be a legitimate passer. That was a big takeaway that he had. But whether it was that or playing style, what were your takeaways from Richardson?
Richardson sort of, this is hard to explain. Confidence, I think, is the best word. In him saying, he felt like if he was playing, they would have made the playoffs. And then, kind of going back to that, if you go back and listen to that, I know there's a way you can take that where it's a shot at somebody. I don't really feel like he's even talking about anybody else in that. And I think he might be surprised if someone brought that up to him. this is a guy who really believes in himself, and that's probably good for a rookie quarterback. Now, some of the playing style stuff, I think that we're gonna end up talking about this all off season. But to me, it's an unanswerable question. It's an unanswerable question about, there are guys in the NFL who, no matter what they do, no matter how hard they try, they end up getting hurt a lot. There are guys like Josh Allen who throw their body around willy-nilly and don't really seem to ever get hurt, or if they get hurt, they can play through it. There's pocket passers who have injury issues. It kind of runs the gamut. And it's hard to predict what Richardson's going to be. We kind of have to wait and see. I mean, obviously there's a concern there, but in terms of trying to figure out like what it's going to look like going forward, there are also guys who got hurt early in their careers and then for the most part didn't really get hurt again. It's all over the place in terms of how injuries are going to impact a player. And it's hard. It's probably the hardest thing we do is try to figure out what that future is going to be.
Yeah, listen, we have to play the hits here, and you're going to have to write about it. I'm already dreading the conversation for the next 6 months over, is Anthony Richardson going to run the ball more? Is he going to stay healthy? But it's obviously one of the main conversations. Stemming from that, Gardner Minshew, what do you make about him? Do you think he's back? And if he's not back, how high on the priority list is backup quarterback, given Anthony Richardson missed, essentially the entire season, it seems like, this year?
I think I could be wrong. I mean, we're coming off of an offseason where Minshew got $3.5 million on a one-year deal. That's not a super heavy investment. My guess is that around the league, them getting to 9-8 with Minshew starting most of the games, I think someone is going to offer him. I don't know if it's I don't think anyone's going to offer him like a starting job or a starting contract. I think someone's going to offer him an opportunity maybe similar to the one he had here, and they might offer him more money, a lot more. Andy Dalton, I think, got somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 to $8 million last year. There's a couple other backup quarterbacks who got, in that 8 to 10 range. I think there's a chance that he gets a lot more money and maybe the Colts move on. I would kind of like, if Minshew does move on for a chance to start somewhere for a spot where he might not be sitting behind a player who's clearly the team's goal, I would like to see them sign somebody like I don't know if you can get him away from the Ravens. He's a free agent, but the Ravens are generally pretty smart about the way they operate. But somebody like a Tyler Huntley who plays more of Richardson's style as a runner, and maybe you don't have to rip out so much of the playbook if Richardson goes down. That's just me. But I do think that Minshew ends up getting more interest in the free agent market than he got last year, and that might lead to him being one and done in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'm looking at Huntley right now. Huntley is a free agent. He signed a one-year, $2.6 million deal to stay with the Baltimore Ravens. And, last year he played well, right? Kept them in contention and, more than in contention. Definitely they could have made a run there. He is an unrestricted free agent, so he's a name that you bring up. And, again, he made less than $3 million last year, this past season, playing for the Ravens.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about, there were a lot of games. There were some games where the running game looked really good against good defenses. I mean, obviously they just played one. The Cleveland game is another one. But there were also some games in that middle stretch where they played teams that are terrible against the run. Carolina sticks out. I think Cincinnati was pretty bad against the run, and they essentially got shut out completely in those games. And I just think that it seems to me that with Steichen's offense, at least what we know of it now, having the quarterback run is such a big part of what they do in the running game that I would just kind of like to maybe not have to lose some of that if and when Richardson has to miss time.
Joel, if I gave you the 2 1 seeds, 49ers and Ravens, and I took the field, would you feel better about what I'm giving you or what I'm getting?
Wait, which one do I have again?
You've got the 1 seeds. You've got the Ravens and 49ers. I get the field.
I feel better about the 1 seeds in this play. Like, if you look at the AFC, I was just thinking about this the other day. It feels like everybody 2 seed on down has a clear flaw. And then the Niners just seem to be like a guaranteed NFC Championship game participant every year anyway, and they feel like they're in a pretty strong place. So yeah, I would take the 1 seeds.
He is Joel A. Erickson. A whole lot recapping yesterday from Chris Ballard, and hopefully, or should be, some quiet weeks on the horizon, which we have not said in recent Januaries. Joel, enjoy the quiet time. I hope I didn't jinx it.
I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you
I mean,
said
right?
that.
I mean, Joel, in all seriousness,
I can't believe it.
What?
Oh no.
What would be on the horizon? What outside? I mean, Gus Bradley's coming back, right? What would be there? Jim Bob Cooter's not being interviewed for head coaching gigs. Am I missing something?
I don't think you're missing anything. But there's just been Kevin.
I don't believe in
these off seasons. I'm just looking around every corner, like what could come up that we're not thinking of right now. But you're right. It doesn't seem like there's anything on the horizon.
Oh, and I mean, the Colts have been very well behaved off the field this year, so I don't think anything would arise.
nothing will happen I'm
on
sure.
that end at all. Joel, hopefully you can enjoy the quiet time, man. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Joel A. Erickson right there from the Star. The backup quarterback debate, similar playing style versus more competent. Like Tyler Huntley is much more of a similar style to Anthony Richardson, but Andy, he's 3-6 career. He has a 5.7 yards per attempt. He's thrown 8 touchdowns and 7 picks. Like, sure.
Sounds like a backup quarterback.
But
yeah.
I mean,
I know.
If you just simply said you have one game to go win and you are, whatever, an expansion football team, you'd pick Minshew over Huntley, right?
Okay, I would have picked.
I mean, isn't Baltimore the better team, and they're 3-6 with Tyler Huntley?
Up until this year, I would have taken Huntley probably. If you'd have said before this season, Andy, without even seeing the stats, what's your gut tell you? Do you want Huntley or Minshew? I would have taken Huntley because of the end of last year, perhaps. But now I feel like after watching, Minshew basically play the entire season, and even games where he had to come in midway through, he was good. He was more than competent at times. So yeah, I'd probably lean Minshew, but I don't know. I tell you, well, let's play that sound. Sorry, Corbin. Let's do that right now, just because we haven't played that and we have time. It's clip number 8. Here's Ballard. This is like a minute. Is that okay, KB?
Yeah,
we do this?
Yeah.
This is him on Minshew, and I guess I kind of feel like Joel that he's going to get more money elsewhere, and Ballard's not going to put that much money to keep Minshew around. Here's that conversation yesterday.
I mean, I think it's a position you got to continue to evaluate every year. The backup quarterback is going to be very important. I think we saw that. I mean, I can't understate, the value of what Gardner brought, to this team. Gave us a chance to win each and every way. Gave us hope, chance to win. Fun guy to be around. I'm sure fun guy for y'all to be kind of unique perspective on life. And guys believe in him. I mean, that's the one thing, likability and belief are two things that are, when they believe and think the quarterback, you have a chance to win, that's important. And, grateful for Gardner and what he was able to do. So I don't want to underestimate the value of the two either.
Is there a chance, is there a chance to bring him back? You look for a different
No, Gardner and of course Gardner wants to be a starter. That's what his makeup is. Sam's the same way. Him and Sam are a lot alike in that way, where they both, you wouldn't want it any. Jacoby was that way. They want to be the guy. I get it. And they're competitive, and it's hard for them to accept somebody telling them, hey, you're the two. This is what's great about Gardner. He was the two, knew he was the two, but he continued to work like he was the one, and then also help Gardner like he was the one. That's a special quality. He's a tremendous young man, good player. Thank God we had him.
It's going to be interesting. I do think Gardner is going to find an opportunity that has more realistic playing time than here. I think you could make the argument a healthy Anthony Richardson has the longest leash of about any quarterback in the entire league. Entering next season, just with how much you need him to play, period, flat out. Just needs reps week in and week out. I don't see Minshew necessarily coming back, because I do think he will have something else that's a little bit more attractive. Again, I like the veteran quarterback route, of course, as the backup. And then I like drafting a guy in the 5th or 6th round that Shane Steichen has identified. I think it's important to give Steichen something in that room to groom and grow. My opinion on backup quarterbacks has just changed. It seems like teams rely on them more and more, Andy, and especially when you have a quarterback like Richardson, I think that onus needs to be even higher.
Yeah, I guess, I guess I've changed since the end of the season. I thought, they'll bring Minshew back, and now I kind of feel like
I don't think it's them
won't bring
internally.
Minshew back, right?
I don't think it's their displeasure with him
it's
internally.
more on him.
I just think that, this is a dude that, he can read the writing on the wall. Unless Richardson gets hurt, he's not playing. Well, go be Sam Howell's backup. Go be Desmond Ritter's backup. Whoever in 2023 those become, go be that. Maybe there's a team like Washington or New England that draft a young quarterback and they don't want to commit to, playing that guy right away. That would be another avenue for him as well. All right, it is Friday. It is almost pop quiz time. That means Freebie Friday. That is a Jiffy Lube oil change coming your way, and the 2-pack of tickets we've been giving away, or the pair of tickets, I should say, we've been giving away all week long for the Indy Golf Expo coming up at the fairgrounds next weekend. So 317-239-1070 for the pop quiz. Before all of that, morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown. Omaha! On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, obviously we have Pacers. We'll get to IU, Purdue, bunch of college basketball this weekend. I wanted to throw one more Ballard clip, just be, trying to integrate as much of sound here as we can from his 52-minute press conference yesterday. I found this. This was at the very end of the press conference. Was it Greg Doyle, you said, hey, you're upbeat, you're almost happy, and I thought it was a forceful answer from the Colts GM.
You should have been in the office on Sunday. I was the only one in here. Everybody, just because we told everybody to get out. And I hate losing. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of not being in the playoffs. That's on me. But I'm encouraged about where we're going, and I'm confident about where we're going.
Did a great job of editing out the F-bomb that started off that. Generally that was the thought, though, from Ballard of, very, very frustrated by how Saturday ended. I would think he didn't necessarily say this. I think overall, very frustrated by the overall resume, and that season's continued to end before the month of January, and there's no real substance in January either. And but having said that, they're on the right path, and how we let off the show is that, and how, honestly, probably I let off the show Monday morning. You are on the right path. I've not said that on January 12th, 2023, January 12th, 2022, 2021, hell, 2020. So it's been a long time since I've said that. A ton of Ballard stuff will be up on the podcast. Got an article up on 1075thefan.com. I know, I'm probably jinxing it, but from a Colts standpoint, there's not a lot of news items that should be on the horizon here. Franchise tag decision begins February 20th. The combine is a little bit after that.
You understand that the reason things are unexpected is because you don't know when they're going to happen.
8 suspensions and an arrest in the last 7 months, probably something to keep an eye on here.
Here's what it is. Like college football and college basketball, when they send their players home for the summer for a few weeks, or the Christmas break when they're back home for a week or whatever it is, 9 days, you just hope you don't get a phone call.
You pray every night.
You pray that, they all just come back to campus and we can just keep our season going. That's this little time period between now and the draft is no phone calls at night.
And really, the Colts don't, neither coordinator's being interviewed. Jim Bob Cooter, Gus Bradley for other jobs as well. All right, tonight down in the ATL, it'll be maybe a trip to Magic City afterwards if the Pacers can get a W. They are a 6-point underdog without Tyrese Halliburton against the Hawks. As Andy said several times today, games against the Hawks have usually meant everybody scores. Put in the walk-ons this season. Pacers have scored over 150 in each of these two meetings. Obviously, the expectation is that won't happen tonight without Halliburton. How do Andrew Nembhard and Buddy Hield respond from Wednesday night? Although you won, they were a combined 1 of 13 from the floor. And again, this starts a 6-game road trip. I say 2-4 and run home.
Yeah, 2-4. And by the way, here are the final scores of the two matchups with Atlanta. 150 to 116. 157-152. So, yes, if you had the over-under at 300.5, you would have hit that. 309 points in that game earlier this season.
That is absolutely absurd. Tonight down in Bloomington, again, it's 7:30 for the Pacers. We'll be on the half-hour dial in Bloomington as well. Coverage will actually begin on WIBC at 5:30. And it's a 6:30 tip against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They've got the five-star kid, right? Dawson Garcia, who's been to a million schools.
Oh, do they?
Does that ring a bell at all?
Dawson Garcia.
Yeah, he started at North Carolina. I think he was an IU recruit, honestly, and then went to Marquette for a brief period. Now he's on his third school. That would be Minnesota. He is their leading scorer. Certainly Minnesota, like Indiana, different team away from home.
Yeah,
versus
I remember Dawson Garcia.
At home. Xavier Johnson, no suspension from what happened the other night at Rutgers there.
Well, that's your team leader. Why would you suspend your team leader?
Well,
got to have him tonight.
It's a hell of a
Who's
way.
going to get to the bucket if X doesn't?
Hell of a way to define leader in that one. FS1 for your TV coverage. Very important. Not necessarily for the resume, but Andy, winning away from home is a struggle, so winning at home cannot be a struggle. Important to take care of business before you welcome the Purdue Boilermakers to Assembly Hall coming up on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if they were to happen to lose tonight, they're getting booed off.
I mean, this will be one of the games they're probably favored the most in the rest of the year.
JMV's going to have Brian Evans back on the show on Monday to give some takes on Mike Woodson and Xavier Johnson. Just some coaching stuff. Gerard Mayo hired in New England. That became official, 8:05 or so this morning. To believe the Commanders, Washington, not going to be in the Bill Belichick sweepstakes. They're about to have their GM locked in. We'll see what they do there. You know, the rumors of Atlanta perhaps and Bill Belichick are out there. Dan Lanning staying there at Oregon. They released a video. I don't know if you saw that yesterday. How, I want to finish there in Oregon. So is it down to Mike Norvell and who was it? Tommy Reese, and what was the third name?
Kalen DeBoer, right?
Kalen DeBoer. Well, okay, so I need to give you news on that.
Oh, okay.
Kalen DeBoer was
Pacific time zone news at this hour?
Listen, I have it. He was supposed to do a radio hit this morning. Canceled his radio hit.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Canceled his sports talk radio hit. That was this morning. I saw that about 15 minutes ago on Twitter.
Now, that's a glass half empty look at it. You know why?
Why is that?
And Mark is not here to back me up on this.
Okay.
But Jeff Saturday did his wake-up call morning radio hit with us.
And then he left
last year and then took the job.
Oh, then he took the job
as the interim head coach.
Oh, yeah.
90 minutes later.
You know what? Off air, I remember Dykton did complain about that.
So
off
don't
air.
read too much into that.
Fair
if Kalen
point.
DeBoer was smart, he would Jeff Saturday it.
Yeah. So what was you guys had him on when? 9 o'clock?
We had Jeff Saturday on. He delayed it to 9:30, if I remember correctly. Okay. And the announcement came as him as the interim head coach at about 11:15.
Well, it would have been funnier if it would have been 10:01.
That would have been awesome.
What time was he usually? 9 o'clock, or was he in the 8 o'clock hour?
We kind of juggled the times with him a little bit because he was traveling to Bristol and everything. But usually we had him at 7:30, and then we'd replay it at 9:30 there. But no, that is interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, you guys
Kalen
never.
DeBoer has no ties to the SEC, right? Or very little, I should say.
I would have to look that up, but no. I mean, not that I know of off the top of my head.
The path that I recall, obviously he coached at IU before, but like IU to Fresno State to Washington has been the last hand. So his ties to that part of the country, if there are any, would have to date back.
I mean, no, there's nothing. I mean, Southern Illinois, Eastern Michigan, Fresno State, IU, Fresno State, and then Washington.
Carbondale, the closest he's been to SEC country.
Indiana fans will wonder, well, why were we really good that year? Well, you had a guy who might be the next Alabama coach who was in the college football playoff and also had Michael Penix as your quarterback.
Hey,
that's why you won games that year.
If these three coaches say no, maybe Nick Saban makes a call to Kurt Cignetti and says, hey, you want to take over? Former Saban assistant, right?
You and the Cignetti.
Light up the cigar.
Was Saban a bad guy not giving them more of a heads up, by the way?
No. No.
Okay.
I actually thought Saban handled this well. I mean, it gets back to the Coach K thing you asked me yesterday. Coach K got the flowers for a year. Everybody celebrated him. Digger Phelps is hugging him in Notre Dame, et cetera, et cetera. I like how Saban did it. By all accounts, did you see the interview with Reese Davis? He literally claims that he was on the phone with Terry at 3:55, walking into the 4 o'clock team meeting, uncertain on what he was going to do.
All right, Corbin, I hate to do this. Clip 18, we have this.
And he interviewed, and while Corbin finds it, he interviewed some assistants.
A coordinator or something, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
2 days ago.
Here, take a listen.
We had a meeting at 4 o'clock. I was 3:55. I was sitting in my chair looking at the clock saying you got 5 minutes to decide which speech you're going to give. And I was actually talking to Miss Terry right up until that time.
I mean, that's wild.
You ever going to call your wife Miss, for me, be like Miss Nikki?
So I know two people in my life I know of two people in my life that refer to their significant others with the Miss in front of it. That would be Nick Saban and Rick Venturi.
Okay.
Miss Sherry and Miss Terry. Boy, right here, you are right. Kalen DeBoer was scheduled to appear at 8 a.m. Pacific, which would have been 11 Eastern, so we still got 90 minutes.
He canceled early, which is, that's a nice.
And here's the statement.
That's a nice
have
sports
you seen
radio
the statement
guest
from the radio station?
I have not.
Husky fans, we know you are looking forward to a visit with Coach DeBoer this morning. Please understand that him and the Washington Athletic Department are continuing to work towards a future we can all be excited about. At this time, Coach will not be joining us this morning, but we will reschedule our interview soon.
Oh, they can't believe that they're working towards the future.
How about the radio station carrying the Kalen DeBoer water there?
Now I need him to go to Tuscaloosa just for that release, just for that statement.
That is wild there. We'll make our picks to round out the show. NFL wild card. Again, Purdue and Penn State tomorrow at 2:15. Butler, Seton Hall at noon tomorrow. The Pirates of Seton Hall off to a nice start this season. Penn State stinks, by the way, as they are playing Purdue tomorrow in Mackey. Freebie Friday, pop quiz, Indy Golf Expo, pair of tickets, Jiffy Lube oil change coming your way, 317-239-1070.
Discover wants everyone to feel special with live 24/7 customer service. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Limitations apply.
The Indy Golf Expo is back January 19th through 21st at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Buy a player's tour pass online and get bonuses.
Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, we've had some good performances this week. We've had a winner, and we've had a 4 out of 5. I think we only had one dreadful performance, if I'm not right.
Yeah, we've had some smart individuals.
But the fellow was
calling.
fun, right? He lost with dignity and grace, which was fantastic. I'm looking through this one today, and people aren't going to win this one. I don't think it's the hardest that Scotty's given us, but they're not getting 5 out of 5. That's just what I'm saying. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. But nonetheless, we will test out the intelligence of a listener. Again, Freebie Friday, that's a Jiffy Lube oil change and a pair of tickets to the Golf Expo. Mr. Sweeney, or Miss Nikki's husband, maybe is a better way to put it.
It's a Southern thing, Miss Nikki. That's the way I have to say it. I don't know here. Let's go, I don't know, caller 3. Let's go 3, Corbin. Who do we have?
We have Chris.
Chris, good morning, man. How are you?
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Forklift Chris.
Hey, Chris. How are you, man? You aren't driving one today, are you?
No, I just got up about a half hour ago, and hopefully we're not working tonight. I don't think we are. So.
Dumb question. Can you drive in a weather like this?
Yeah, pretty much. The docks are open, and yeah, it's pretty crappy. But I mean, if it freezing rain, we're not gonna make it in. So it's supposed to happen today. So I don't count on it.
Have you ever driven a snowplow, Chris?
No, never am.
It's always interesting to me, the snowplow drive. I'm always curious, like, why not? I always see the blade raised a lot of times. I'm like, if we kept the blade on the ground, would we hurt the road? I'm asking this in all seriousness.
Well, I mean, some of the roads are so beat up anyway. It might actually do it. It might do it better.
That's my back right tire.
Are you talking about the full snowplow or the guy that's got the big truck, like the Ford truck that puts the plow on the truck itself?
The full ordeal. Yeah, the mini Zamboni.
Because the guy that puts that puts that on his own personal truck, like that guy, I want to be with that guy on the zombie apocalypse. That guy knows what's up.
Chris, congrats on the Golf Expo ticket, and congrats on the Jiffy Lube oil change. Andy Sweeney, lead us off.
All right, question number 1, Chris. Let's get a winner here on this Friday. The temperature, okay, for tomorrow night's NFL playoff game in Kansas City is expected to be about 6 below zero. Where was the coldest NFL game based on air temperature alone played? Was it Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, TCF Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Wrigley Field, Chicago, or Lambeau Field there in Green Bay?
I think the obvious answer is Lambeau, but yeah, I'm thinking Riverfront though. I'll go Lambeau.
Smart. Number 2 here, Chris. Tomorrow's AFC wildcard game between the Texans and Browns feature a matchup between a 22-year-old facing an almost 39-year-old. That would be Mr. Stroud and Mr. Flacco. That matchup is the 5th largest age gap between starting quarterbacks in NFL postseason history. The other 4 all involve Tom Brady. Which of the following quarterbacks is not in the top 4 with Brady? That'd be Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Jake Delhomme, or Patrick Mahomes?
Who's not?
Who is not?
I would go with Mahomes.
You sure, Chris?
Well, if you ask that, I guess not. Jared Goff.
You sure, Chris?
So
Jalen Hurts.
Oh. Chris, you sure?
Chris, are you sure, brother?
What was the other one?
Jake Delhomme.
Jake Delhomme.
I always remember
God bless him.
Chris Berman singing about Jake Delhomme. All right, mercifully moving on to 3.
I always miss Bourbon. Berman, I should say, not Bourbon. I had that last night. Question number 3.
You missed that too.
Yeah, one of this weekend's playoff games is a rematch of the longest game in NFL history. Which 2 teams played in the NFL's longest game? Was it Packers Cowboys, Dolphins Chiefs, Rams Lions, Steelers Bills?
I go Steelers Bills.
Chris, number 4 here. On this day in 1969, Joe Willie Namath made good on his guarantee of a Jets victory as New York defeated the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III to become the first AFL team to win the Super Bowl. Where was Super Bowl III played? That iconic picture, right, of Naismith poolside, correct? Orange Bowl in Miami, the LA Coliseum, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, or Tulane Stadium in New Orleans?
I think in the Orange Bowl.
All right, question number 5, Chris. For the first time since 2000, the NFL playoffs feature 3 teams that have never won a Super Bowl. That would be the Texans, Browns, and Lions. Name 2 of the 3 teams that entered the 2000 postseason having never won a Super Bowl. And Scotty's even giving you some hints here, okay? One of these 3 teams won the Super Bowl that year, and the other 2 have won a Super Bowl since. So in 2000, 3 teams entered, never having won a Super Bowl, and one of those won it that year, and the other 2 have won it since.
Okay, so
basically, do you remember who won the Super Bowl in 2000? That's where you need to start. Who won the Super Bowl in 2000?
it wasn't the Patriots. That was 2001, year before.
Was it the Ravens?
It was the Ravens. They beat the Giants and Kerry Collins.
Does he need to name another?
Yeah, he needs to name the 2 others, yeah. Or at least one of them, yeah.
That haven't won the Super Bowl?
That entered 2000 not having won a Super Bowl, but they've won it since. There's 2 teams that in 2000 were in the postseason, had not won a Super Bowl, but they have won it since. Give me a team.
Throwing a blank.
I'll give you the answer. Saints and Bucks.
Chris, we kind of ended that one with a dud there. Not going to lie.
It's a Friday fizzle.
But congrats, nonetheless, on the pair of tickets to the Indy Golf Expo.
And not having to work tonight, potentially.
Well, that as well. You got the first 2 right, Lambeau and Jake Delhomme. And then after that, Dolphins-Chiefs, the longest game ever, 2 overtimes, Christmas 1971. Oh, and he also got number 4 right. I stand corrected, Orange Bowl for Super Bowl III. So thank you.
Good job, Chris. Not bad.
For that. And I do want to give a shout-out right here. We have Quinn in here, swimmer from Cathedral High School. Jason tagged me in this tweet. Awesome story here, courtesy of WRTV. His daughter, right here, Cascade High School, swimmer with Down syndrome, makes a splash, beats her own personal record. Absolutely love that right there. So, Jason, thank you for sharing that. The pride of Cascade right there. From a swimming standpoint.
You know what we should do? I've done this before. I've known other shows to do this. I don't know how difficult this would be. Is we should do like a brag line. Well, people can email us.
Yeah.
Brags on their kids who do things in school, and we can read those on the air because there's a bunch of great stories, and we're not going to know any of them.
We are bragging right now on Aurora Ellis from
there you
Cascade High School here, just setting her personal record there. Thank you to RTV6, and thank you to Jason for sharing that story, Aurora. Congrats on that. We'll close it out making some wild card picks here.
Of our 26 locations and stock up with these great deals. Jack Daniel's half gallons for $39.99. Crown Royal Colts tailgate buckets for $34.99. East Street only. Jim Beam half gallons for $24.99. Bacardi ready to drink pina colada and Sunset punch cans for 99 cents or 4 packs for $3.99. Bud and Bud Light 12-pack cans and bottles for $13.99 and Miller High Life 12-pack bottles for $8.99. Why pay more when you can pay less here at Payless Liquors?
Progressive asks, what do a diehard fan watching the game at home?
With 4 seconds left.
A poorly placed good luck candle.
Don't let me down, Candle. Kick is up.
A last-second improbable win.
It's good! Yes!
And flammable sports-themed curtains have in common?
Oh, geez, whoa!
They can scorch your big win high and
98.5, The Fan.
Yeah, been a fun week of shows. I say fun, a good week of shows. Too bad the Colts not playing. Could be hosting, obviously, Saturday against the Browns, but a ton of NFL. Pacers, of course, tonight, 7 o'clock. That coverage, 7:30 tip-off right here on The Fan. We're going to make some picks, but it has been an active week with Chris Ballard and all the Colts reaction with their season ending, the Halliburton injury, and then how the Pacers end up playing college basketball. We'll see if Indiana tonight can rebound. I would imagine Purdue would rebound at home against Penn State on Saturday. If not, we're going to have an issue when we walk in here. You wanted more Purdue talk? We'll give you more Purdue talk if they lose on Monday.
And we got Indiana-Purdue coming up on Tuesday.
Yes, we do. So
obviously.
Busy times. And we already have, Bruce Weber locked in? I think Dykton told us.
Yeah, I believe we've got Bruce Weber joining us on Tuesday. We'll try to get
fun.
A couple others to preview IU-Purdue coming up here on Tuesday. Should we do our wild card picks?
Yeah, go ahead. What do you think happens? Yeah, we can do whatever here.
Let's start here on Saturday. Again, we got two games, Texans, Browns, Chiefs, Dolphins. I will go with Cleveland in the first game here. I'll say the Fighting Flaccos get it done in Houston, and I'll go with Kansas City in the nightcap.
Yeah, I'm going to do the exact same thing, so pretty boring. I'm going to go with Cleveland winning. Flacco will be a conversation piece. He'll probably throw for 300 yards, and I just don't think the Texans – I just don't think they're going to get the open looks for Nico Collins.
Now, Mark took the Texans, right?
I believe he did. Yeah, I need to look it up. I know he texted us earlier today because we have to submit our picks, which we will. But I'm taking Cleveland, and then I just don't think the Dolphins are going to be able to do it in the cold. I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to do much more than win this game in the postseason, but I'll take Pat Mahomes and company getting the win.
Yeah, honestly, if the weather was a little better, I would think long and hard about the Dolphins, but I just can't.
Agreed.
I can't go there.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree.
Sunday, the triple header. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Dallas, Green Bay, Detroit, L.A. Where are you heading?
Okay, I'll give you all three. I'm going to go with Buffalo, although, man, can the Steelers keep this close?
I think 10 points is a lot in that weather.
I would agree. I think 10 points is too much. If T.J. Watt were playing, I wonder if that would move the line just a little bit, but I'll go Bills, Cowboys, and I've been on the Rams beating the Lions in the nightcap, so I'll do that. So Bills, Cowboys, Rams.
Well, I thought you might go Packers there for a second. You acted like you were a little hesitant with Mike McCarthy's bunch in the playoffs.
It's lining up where the Cowboys could win this season.
I cannot
hate it.
Root against or pick against the Fighting Dan Campbells at home. That will be a raucous Sunday night
I can't wait. That's going to be fantastic.
In Detroit, so I'll go all three home teams there. And to close it out, I think Philly gets it done on Monday, but boy, not a lot of reason for optimism there based off how they've played as of late. Who you got, Philly or Tampa?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Philly. The one thing I would say, because I think you have all the road teams winning on Saturday, or home teams, I should say, some road warriors are going to come out in the NFL. You know it. It happens every year. Some road teams do what they need to do.
All right, we are on Kalen DeBoer radio watch this morning. Again, Nick Saban, who will fill in for him moving forward, remains to be seen. But Kalen DeBoer, the Washington head coach, has canceled a radio appearance later today in Washington. And then if you look to Bill Belichick's replacement, that was announced about 2 hours ago. Gerard Mayo there, the successor, already on staff, obviously longtime Patriot player. And we'll see anything else play out from this weekend with 7 other openings around the NFL. Again, reminder tonight, 7:30, Pacers and Hawks, and 6:30 over on WIBC, Indiana and Minnesota. So as we look ahead to the start times tonight, basketball-wise, on the 30s there, for Indiana and the Pacers. Everybody have a great weekend.
The Ride with JMV.